Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Karsbeck?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace?
Here.
Trustee Hardy?
Here.
Trustee Saraceli?
Here.
Trustee Ayers?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here. All right, we have a full board tonight. So thank you all for showing up tonight. We have a packed house and also a packed agenda. And we'll try to we will make it through all these, but we kind of have to keep it to a time limit on these. So we'll move on to citizen participation next. And this is a chance for the public to speak to anything that is not on tonight's agenda. So I see a lot of people have signed up regarding the bike park. So I'm going to call out the ones that aren't that. We'll start with Linda Wilson.
My name is Linda Wilson. I live at 1461 Merlette Street. It's a Heron Point subdivision, and I would like to thank you all for your service to the community and all those extra hours you put in. I was here a couple meetings ago and asked about the ordinances and was told that as far as the landscape ordinances and street trees, they had been updated. We moved in 2017 and they were updated, I believe, in 2019. So my question to the board is, we're looking at dead trees and replacing them, and according to the ordinance, trees have to be planted 40 feet away from a street light. That's the current one. So if we have a live tree, do we need to remove that? No.
No.
Even if it's less than 10 feet away from a street tree?
Yes, ma'am.
It's only the dead trees that we have to remove.
We'd like you to remove the dead trees. The goal is not to, I'm sorry, Mayor, did you want me to answer?
Do you have any other questions?
No, this is basically
Okay.
it about which ordinance do we go by, the 17 or the
If there's an
updated
existing
19?
live tree, we would not ask that it be removed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. There's one for, let's see, non-potable. Lynn Larson. All right.
Lynn Larson, 205 Hubble Street. I'm appearing before you tonight as a member of the Bertha Tree Advisory Committee. And hopefully we'll have a couple more members appointed tonight as well. The committee, as you know, has been working to get tree care information into the community by several means, and you just heard one concern about that. And we've been collecting information, contact information from HOAs and metro districts, or at least attempting to. One tree committee concern is the adequate watering of newly planted trees. The town has deemed it important to get new developments to use non-potable water for both private and public areas. I was speaking to an HOA representative yesterday. That person told me that the Farmstead development is prepared to use non-pot water. However, residents are upset because the promised non-pot water system currently must use potable water at greater expense. According to this person, Farmstead has been waiting since last September for the town to complete the installation of the necessary connections for the development to begin using non-pot water. Can the staff update us on the progress of this project and when the residents of Farmstead will get their promised non-pot water? I note that Heron Lakes Development and Golf Course claim they are currently using non-potable water. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great question. Commissioner Kirk, do you mind?
Yeah, unfortunately, the Farmstead development is not waiting on town staff to install anything. The developer is responsible for the installation of those improvements. The pump system is in. In fact, they've been using the system that was built for non-pot water, but they're using it with, it's hooked up to a fire hydrant right now. And part of that is because of, we are having a hard time agreeing on how that system will operate because we're both using Pioneer Park as the basin to store non-pot water before it goes into their non-pot irrigation system. So we've been going back and forth on agreement with them for quite some time. They did make changes to the delivery ditch without our permission, which we've rectified. And so there was an issue getting water to the pond. That was not our issue. But again, that's been rectified. Water can be delivered to the pond now. Water is running from Loveland Lake and Ditch, which is where that water's coming from. And so most of it now is a question of whether or not we agree on their operational plan because it impacts our non-pot irrigation system at Pioneer Park.
So we're actually kind of waiting on them then to come back with the app.
The improvements, as far as I understand, are installed and functional, but they were not taking water because Loveland Lake and Ditch didn't turn on, didn't start running water until mid-June. So that was part of the challenge there. We agreed to let them hook up to a hydrant so that they could get landscaping irrigated. Now that the ditch is on, we need to finalize the agreement about how that system's gonna operate, but I believe it's all there and ready to go.
Okay. And, yeah. My only concern is that if he's saying that to citizens, he might be misinformed. It might be worth reaching out.
I can assure you he is not misinformed.
Okay.
The developer is not misinformed.
So we got to get on him then. I mean, I'm just concerned now that he's telling people that and he's not doing anything. If there isn't a holdup.
Yeah, I don't know what, sometimes that's just rumor that gets spread around. It's not necessarily direct from the developer or from the HOA. If it is,
True.
we can certainly work with them to clear up those misunderstandings, but they are not waiting on the town to construct anything.
Great.
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other signups, but if there's anyone in the audience tonight that would like to speak to something that is not on tonight's agenda, please. After this, gentleman, I'll call you up, sir.
No, that's fine.
Plenty of time. Brian Lack, 706 7th Street. If I'm correct, Emerald Ash Borer has still not made it to the town of Berthoud. Is that accurate? That we know of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Boom, victory lap. That's so great. Because I think we're pretty much surrounded by it. So maybe all of those beautiful old ash trees, if we keep injecting them. And so that's my question. I had one of my ash trees treated by the town. Do I need to do anything to make sure that like every 2 or 3 years? Or is that monkey on my back? Do I need to like?
You talking about the cost share program?
It's free now, I think.
Essentially, the town taking on healthy EAB or healthy ash, right?
Yeah, the town board asked us a few years ago just to treat all the mature ash trees in town, and downtown in particular, to maintain the health of the urban canopy. Josh Embry, our former forester, started that program. We treated all the trees the first year, and then now they're on a schedule. There shouldn't be anything you need to do,
Excellent.
but I can confirm. We did hire a new forester just last week, so hopefully you get to meet him soon.
Good news. Keep up protecting our beautiful trees. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Sir?
Thanks all. Fred Hansen, 902 Canyonlands. Just hoping a quick update on the pickleball courts. We are a little bit since we've heard anything, so I wanted to see if maybe there's anything you can share that I can take back to my club.
All right. Commissioner Kirk, do you have any?
Probably nothing since the last time. We put together a design for some pickleball courts at Wagner. We had some feedback about some enhancements to those. We're working on the design for those pickleball courts. And we're still committed not to take out the existing pickleball courts until there's new pickleball courts in place.
Oh, thank you. That will keep me from getting bruised when I deliver that message. And I was here when we did the adjustments and stuff, and I so appreciate you guys listening to that. Is there any timeline, or right now is it just, hey, we're not gonna take these out until we get the new ones? Is there anything I can share with the?
I think we authorized the consultant to do the construction documentation just 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I don't have a specific timeline for you today, but I know it's underway.
Okay, great. Well, that's a great update. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Issue down tonight's agenda, sir.
Me, guys. Aaron Perry, 325 Colorado Avenue, here in Berthoud. So, I don't know if you guys really understand the impact you made at Berthoud Days, you guys being part of that. I just want to encourage each and every one of you to continue to get to know your citizens, continue to represent them very well, and we will continue to get them to come and meet you guys and get to have a relationship with you guys on a good note too. But the impact that you guys made, I had people asking me, who are these people that were doing the pie testing and judging and everything, but I got a chance to let them see who their representatives of this town were, and you guys did very well. May, just want to commend you on the progress that you did with that. You did very well, okay? Don't let anybody tell you different, because you did really good. And I just wanted to share that with you guys, because you got a lot of people who support you, and know that and we want you to represent us well, and we want to be able to represent you well. I just want to encourage you guys on all that.
Thank you very much. And congrats on the first place.
Yeah, thank you. It wasn't rigged, I guess.
All right, one final opportunity if anyone wishes to speak to something not on tonight's agenda. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. This is a routine matters. Would any trustees like something removed from consent agenda that have a question they'd like to talk about?
If we could pull off items D and E, just for some clarifications.
Okay, that is trustee, Mayor Pro Tem Grace wants to remove the Cranex annexation and the water and wastewater master plan. Is there anything else trustees would like removed? All right, is there a motion to approve? Consent agenda minus D and E.
I'll move to approve consent agenda minus D and E.
Okay, trustee Eric. Trustee Sorcelli has seconded. Any discussion on this? Here, yeah. Deputy Clerk, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Grace,
Yes.
trustee Hardy,
Yes.
trustee Ayers,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
Yes.
trustee Sarcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Kirsten.
Yes, all right, consent agenda is approved. Consent agenda items removed will be considered next, so we can go on to the Crane annexation compliance resolution.
I guess my question on this is, I believe, isn't there supposed to be a trail in that, over that land? I guess as it's coming in to be annexed, the petition for it, I guess my understanding is there's supposed to be a trail over that?
The Front Range Trail, I think is what you're referring to,
Yes.
wasn't planned through that property. It was planned through the Heron Lakes subdivision that's already been annexed and developed. But in this case, prior to rezoning, they have to do a neighborhood master plan for the site. That would come back before you on July 26th. The action that you would take tonight is only to set the public hearing on July 26th. You're not making any findings, you're not approving anything about the annexation. You're only setting the public hearing, which is just an official step required by statute.
Gotcha. Okay. That's the only question I have.
Okay, thanks. Well, I appreciate you removing that one, because, I'm sorry, is there anything else on that? Okay, yeah, we're getting we had a good email this week from a family about the amount of growth going on, and I understand the concern, and I think a lot of us do, and share in some of that. So this is, with any going in west of 287, would have to go to vote of people if it's residential.
So the way that ballot measure was written, as I understand it, is anything west of County Road 19.
19,
And this is
okay.
not west of County Road 19, or that line.
Okay.
So this would not require a vote prior to you making a decision.
All right.
So I guess, and then the other question I had for item E, the water wastewater master plan, totally need one. I guess I was just curious, the price and the cost difference, if that could get explained a little bit.
Sure. May I suggest, Mayor, that you take action on item D first, and then we'll talk water and wastewater? Or do you want to consider them both in sequence?
No,
together?
I'm fine. That makes sense to me. It's Trustee Grace's point on a trail. It does make me think of, it's not on this annexation, but we've had a long-term plan in discussion regarding having that trail connection from the clubhouse to County Road 10. And for a petition this might be a formality. It does have the wording in there that there should be a community of interest and this should be in the best interest of the town. I don't know the developer, but he does good work. My kind of bringing that up, it makes me think, this is an opportunity to get that trail done. It seems like a short connection. But looking at the annexation petition, and this is just a petition, we'll talk about that during the annexation, the merits of it. I don't want to hold it up over that, but I just hope the developer realizes that this is important to a lot of us and we want to keep our commitments before we're annexing more land. I guess I'll just say that.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, let's take action on D. Would anyone like to make a motion on that to approve?
I'll move to approve action item D.
Trustee Hardy has
Consent agenda.
moved.
Second.
Trustee Grace has seconded that. Is there any discussion on that? Deputy Clerk, we have a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Grace,
Yes.
Trustee, Trustee Sarcelli,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
and Mayor Kirschner.
Yes, all right. The petition has been approved and we'll have to set a date for that. Or I think the date's already set at the end of July.
Correct.
Okay, so now Administrator Kirk with the Water and Wastewater Master Plan.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace, was your question the difference between the budgeted amount and the actual cost?
Right, just kind of explaining the difference on that and where that additional cost came in, I guess is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, so I think the straightforward and honest answer is that we didn't have a price when we budgeted, so we just guessed at what we thought a water wastewater master plan might cost based on prior experience. The proposals we received were not low bid kind of proposals. When we select consultant services, we take proposals that are based on qualifications, we do interviews, we talk through the project and the scope. We select the consultant that we think is best suited for the work that we need, and then we go through and negotiate a proposal with them. And sometimes that changes based on the scope of the work to be done, and the scope changes sometimes during that process. So I think that the simple answer is that we budgeted $190,000 thinking that would be enough to do the project. We've thoroughly vetted it. Our utilities director, Ken Matthews, is here if you'd like to get additional information. I'm sure he can walk you through that as well. But we feel like the proposed price of $315,000 as a max fee. It's built on a time materials basis, so it's not necessarily that we're gonna hit that. We may or we may not, depending on how the project goes. But that max fee is appropriate for the work that we've outlined in the scope. So we do have other sources of funds that we can draw from to make up that budgetary difference. And we would suggest that we move forward now with that project rather than postpone it. And then we'll make those adjustments at mid-year as needed.
Okay, well, that answered my question, thank you.
You got it.
Is there anything else regarding this? Water and wastewater master plan? Okay, is there a motion to approve the water and wastewater master plan?
I move to approve item E on the consent, or I guess, master plan, wastewater master plan.
Is there a second?
One second.
All right, Trustee Grace, or Trustee Hardy has moved on this. Mayor Pro Tem Grace has seconded. Any final discussion? Deputy Clerk, may we have another roll call vote, please?
Trustee Sarcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Kirschner.
Yes. Okay, consent agenda has been approved. Annexation and the water and wastewater as well. And we can move on now to our regular agenda item, and we'll start out with the 2021 annual audit presentation by our financial director, Cindy Leach.
Hello, everyone. The town's financial records and processes are audited every year by an independent audit firm, and the 2021 financial records were audited by Hinkle and Company, and it was conducted over 2 weeks, about a 2-week period in late March. And Jim Hinkle with Hinkle and Company is here tonight to present the results of that audit.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Hinkle with Hinkle and Company CPAs out of Denver,
and we did perform the annual audit of the financial statements. The financial statements responsibility is management. Our responsibility is to verify the accuracy of those financial statements. We start off by getting out of the screen here. We start off by looking at the town's internal accounting controls over the accounting department to determine whether or not those are adequate enough to safeguard the assets of the town. Primarily, we're looking for a segregation of duties. There are basically 3 steps in an accounting transaction: the authorization, the recording, and the approval, or the initiation, the recording, the approval of a transaction. And we don't want one person to do all of those steps. So we're looking at the segregation of duties, and then we select a sample of transactions, of both payroll transactions and disbursements, and we test whether or not the control features within the internal control structure is operating as intended and that can be relied upon. That work allows us to determine whether or not there are any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls. Those are terms of art for us, and a significant deficiency is defined as a design flaw in the system of internal controls that would allow an error to go undetected in the ordinary course of business. And a material weakness is a significant deficiency that would result in a material misstatement of the annual financial statements. And based upon our analysis and our testing, we did not find any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the internal control structure. That's the answer that you all would hear. We then go on to the audit of the financial statements, and we primarily look at tested details, where we drill down into account balances, and we look at the underlying transactions and supporting documentation for those transactions, like invoices and cash receipts on revenues. We also do analytic review, where we look at current year revenues, expenses to prior year, current year to budget, assets to revenues, liabilities to expenses. And we're looking for relationships that we either can't explain or didn't expect. And if we find any of those, we do further tested details until we have the audit evidence that supports our opinion. And in your case, the audit opinion is an unmodified opinion. In layman's term, that means a clean opinion. States that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with general accepted accounting principles. The main significant difference between this year and last year is the American Institute of CPAs decided that the audit opinion that we've had for the last 20 years wasn't good enough, and that they really needed to come out with a new one. And they've gone from 2 pages to 3 pages to basically say the same thing. But even though it looks different, it still is a clean opinion, just like you've had in the past. Just the opinion paragraph is now at the top instead of the bottom. We have also issued a report to those charged with governance. We're required by our standards to report if certain things occur during the course of the audit, and we did not have any of those. We did not have any difficulties in the audit process. We did not have any disagreements with management or conflicts on accounting policies or methods. We are not aware of management talking to other auditors. It goes back to the old opinion shopping days, where if we disagreed with accounting policy, they would find somebody else who would agree with them, and we're not aware of that. So all in all, it was a very good audit. We got through it in a good, timely fashion. And what I'd like to leave you with is probably what I think you would believe is the most important, is that we felt like we had open transparency throughout the entire audit process. Everything that we asked for, we were provided in a timely fashion, and we were never kept from any information or denied access to any information or documents. So we felt like we had that open transparency to ask for and receive whatever we needed to in order to comply with our professional standards for an audit of the financial statements. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions from the trustees? All right, Mayor Pro Tem?
Only one I have is, are there any areas that we as a town could improve on for you?
From our perspective, I think that you've got a pretty good system going. Good documentation of all supporting transactions and things like that, good segregation of duties. Anytime a municipality goes through a period of growth, You have stresses on some of those systems and individuals' workloads and things like that. I would just kind of keep an eye on that to make sure that as the town grows, that some of those systems are not stressed to a point of creating problems. But right now, I don't see that as an issue at this point.
Any other questions? Okay. I did say I'd open this up to the public, so if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this, feel free to come up. Sir, if you could come to the podium.
Just one quick question.
Yeah. Come to the
Mark
podium.
Morris, 1134 Usenet Lane.
Thank you.
In your opinion, does the city have the technology that's needed to conduct business as well as possible, especially with an eye toward the future, the next 5-10 years?
From an accounting standpoint, yes. From as far as initiating transaction, paying bills, collecting revenues, those types of fundamental transactions, yes. We did not get into any IT areas to evaluate the adequacy of the IT levels and the expandability and things like that. But as far as the day-to-day accounting transactions, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good questions.
Anyone else in the public? All right, close that off. How does the board feel about this? I think it's great, and I appreciate it. And Director Leach, all of you guys know how much work goes into these things. Seen it done at the MPO, and it's really impressive to see how all the financial controls and the auditors really separate things out for government. Pretty serious and takes a lot of work, so I really appreciate it. It looks great.
Thank you very much.
Oh, did any of you guys have anything to say before we make a motion? Okay, cool. All right, anyone like to move on this?
I'll make a move to accept the audited financial statements for the year ending December 31st, 2021.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any final discussion on this? Deputy Clerk, we have another roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
Trustee Harding,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Sarcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Kurtz.
Yes, okay, thank you very much again. All right, let's move on now to the Old Town Hall redevelopment concept, and it's being introduced by our Economic Development Director, Walt Elish. I think I saw him in here earlier.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees. Thank you for this opportunity. Hope I'm coming before you tonight with some very exciting news and for exciting project for you all to consider. It's the redevelopment of the Old Town Hall site. Just a very quick update. We started this project back in 2017 when we first had the idea with the board's approval to go out to the community, to the development community to see if there was interest in redeveloping about a little over a half-acre site of the former town hall. At that point, we received one response, and the board at that time wanted to just pause. We had COVID come up right after that, so we put the whole project pretty much on hold. And then in July of last year, the Board of Trustees, along with staff, decided to go back and reopen this process, which we did. Did an RFQ process this time. We had a consultant on board to assist us. We sent the RFQ out to, I think, 9 or 10 specific companies, developers that we thought would have some interest. Once again, we received one response. And since that time, we've been working with Mike Shrutland of Shrutland Custom Homes to on his proposal to redevelop the Old Town Hall site. We came back to you all, the board, in January of this year to provide you with an update. And in between October and January, staff along with Mike went down to Denver with our consultants, toured other projects. Mike looked around this closer to home, other projects of similar size, and what we're looking for. And did a lot of homework. And since January until today, staff have been meeting with Mike off and on. He's been engaging with his architectural team, his accounting team, putting this project together. So tonight, what you're gonna see from Mike and his team is what his plans are for the redevelopment of the Old Town Hall site. Staff is pretty excited about what you're gonna see. We think Mike's put together a pretty good plan. I think he addresses most of, if not all of the points that the trustees you all have raised, what you'd like to see happen at that site. Mike took all that into account, also taking into account the economic viability from his perspective as a developer of that site as well. So with that, Mike and his team is here. I'm gonna, one last thing before I introduce Mike Walker, the TB group, to really start off their presentation. The only thing that Mike Schrotlin is asking for is some waivers of some fees, which, you know, we have entertained with other projects that have come before us, so not just this one. It's not unique to this project. And he's asking that we provide him the land free of charge. So keep that in the back of your mind. We'll talk about more, if you like what you see, we'll talk more about that at a later time. But tonight we want you to respond to Mike's proposal and see what you think about his development proposal for the Old Town Hall site. So with that, I'm going to ask Mike Walker to come up with the TV group, and then after that, Mike Schroeder will come up. Mike?
I am going to see if my mouse will work on this, because I cannot use a mouse pad. Is that on the screen yet? All right, Mayor, trustees, thank you for your time today. I appreciate the opportunity. As Walt just described, we're redeveloping with Mike Schrotlin the Old Town site in downtown Berthoud. For right now, we're calling it the Berthoud Old Town Square redevelopment project. And I will go ahead and just jump right into it. Zoom out a little bit. As you guys probably know, the site is located at 3rd Street in Massachusetts, where the Old Town Hall project was. We understand there's a lot of exciting redevelopment plan adjacent to it and to the south on 3rd Street. So I think all of this is exciting redevelopment for the town of Berthoud. What we are proposing here is a multi-use development. We got a townhome building, 5 units planned for on the north side. A retail commercial building here in the corner of 3rd Street, Massachusetts. A new 2-story restaurant and office building, while also keeping the existing bake building that is there and using that in conjunction with the restaurant and office buildings above. We believe that, the transition from the existing residential to the north and the existing residential to the south, the 2-story townhome building is a great transition from the new, from the older to a new development, and then with the retail and commercial farther south, and then the connections down to the 3rd Street retail and the redevelopment that's going to go down there. We understand that there's going to be redevelopment along the train tracks in the near future. So we're providing a real strong pedestrian connection internally within this development that connects the townhomes, the retail, all the way down, to Massachusetts and further down to Main Street as well. We understand that there's going to be, redevelopment within the alleyways. So our proposal here really brings that strong pedestrian-friendly use to this development. And you'll see here in the next couple of slides of kind of our vision of what we believe is going to be some pretty exciting redevelopment in this area. Our next slide here are some visionary images that we've collected as we're working with Mike and the town on this plan. Again, we want people to enjoy this site during the day, at nighttime, make it real exciting, real festive. People will want to come down to this location. They'll want to live in those townhomes. If they're working in these buildings, they can just walk there. They're walking distance from Main Street. We really plan on this to be a very pedestrian-friendly use. Here you can kind of see our The architects did a fantastic job on providing these perspectives. This is a north view perspective from Massachusetts. Looking into the site, you can see the existing bank building right here, how it's incorporated into the new retail and commercial restaurant building here, outdoor patio for the restaurant, a strong pedestrian promenade in between the retail building and the restaurant. The next perspective, again, it's from Massachusetts and Third. It's kind of looking northwest. You can see the bank building in the background. Again, this is what we're proposing as the new restaurant. The pedestrian promenade goes in between, and right along Massachusetts and Third Street is the retail building with storefront, easy access, great connections to the surrounding neighborhood. This perspective here, again, is showing what, what the architects envision the townhomes are going to be, very urban, using brick accents, front porches, patios, very open, and again, it's just looking into the pedestrian promenade and the adjacent buildings there to the left. And then again, this is along Third Street, basically looking from the east towards the west. And this perspective here it's kind of a cool one. It's from the patios from the townhomes. So as you're sitting on the patio homes, you're looking down into the pedestrian-friendly promenade, short walk to the restaurant, to the retail, short walk to down Third Street and down to Main Street. So it really offers great multi-use, pedestrian-friendly, and talking with the town, they were very excited about these concepts and the potential that this site has. The last slide that I'm showing here, it's a bird's eye view. I understand there's a lot of roofs and stuff like that, but it kind of gives you an overall feel, looking down on the site, what this site has to offer. The townhomes here on the background are on the north side. You're looking down into the pedestrian promenade with the connection down to Massachusetts and to Third Street. You can see there's a proposed rooftop patio for the second floor, as well as the proposed restaurant with the outdoor patio area. Again, I think with what's going on downtown in this area, it's just a great mix of uses and a great opportunity for the town and its residents. Couple footprints here. I'll let Mike kind of talk about the proposed buildings and what he envisions the uses to be. But again, it's a 2-story, 5-unit townhome building.
Hello. So, so the townhomes, those layouts are pretty set and probably not too big a concern to anybody. They are 2-story though, just a summary. 2-story, possible basement finish. They each have a 2-car garage off of the alley, a new alley that we will create to the north. The commercial is pretty flexible at this point. It kind of depends on who, the restaurant that we'll work with, they'll dictate a lot of the layout of the commercial. If they come in and they would like half of this main level, or if they like 3/4 of the entire main level, whatever it is, that'll kind of dictate how the rest of it rolls out. And then, so definitely the main sort of anchor of the development would be a restaurant, getting a restaurant there. And then here in this main building, which that's this building here. So restaurant, at least on the main floor, main level, outdoor dining there. Like Mike mentioned, maybe some rooftop dining. We've also discussed, so right here it's showing that we've discussed maybe instead of that, maybe up in this area on the 3rd floor rooftop. That might keep it a little way further away from the residential, maybe allow for a little more, maybe this front half of the building might be rooftop dining. Same with the second floor, it's gonna be kind of dictated by the restaurant. There'll probably be some office space up there though. Or some flex type space that might be a different user. And then we get to the smaller commercial building. This is this building here on the right. So currently, that's where the feed and grain building is. We're proposing to build this building instead. There will be, that's kind of some flex commercial space too. Office, retail, maybe, food, ideally, a dessert place, cupcake store, something like that. But it's hard to tell until, we get tenants to sign on board. So yeah, this is showing that into 3 spaces. It could be one, 2 spaces could be for office, retail, possible small restaurant. And that's really it on the floor plan. So now, if anybody has any questions?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Questions, trustees?
I do like the thought of an idea of having the third floor rooftop. You'd have more seating up there.
Yeah.
It could be a little noisier up there and not be like at the same level of the second floor of the apartments, but maybe on a third floor it'd be more broadcast out. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Agreed.
Be a nice option to have, and plus be more than 6 tables.
Yeah.
So.
Right,
'cause
yeah.
You get up there, you can have I don't know, the trees kind of block most of the view to the mountain.
Well, that's been a discussion, and I know the last meetings here, it was discussed, and we still aren't sure. But we think a lot of the trees will block a lot of the views, but either way, it'd be pretty cool from up there, even
Get a
to
good view downtown.
seeing other buildings and
Yeah,
cities, and yeah.
And the train.
Yeah. The grain building across.
So it seems like in the back, that you said fee simple, or the presentation did, so they're owning the residential in the back, but in the front, this is all leased.
Right. That, most likely, it
And-
could change direction, but that's probably what, the way we're headed.
Are you working with any particular restaurants right now, or is it?
No, we're not. We just recently got these kind of most recent renderings right here in the last few days. And now we're probably gonna go out and start talking to some restaurants. And that's what the incentives will allow us to do is work with a restaurant, to us to be able to offer the restaurant maybe, some incentives to
build out incentives.
to land there, yeah.
Mayor, to your question, knowing that this is hopefully gonna happen, I'm out there talking to potential restaurants and owners, informing them about this space, that this could be coming online. So
Great.
we're working in tandem to fill that
Yeah.
space.
Awesome.
I think we've been in talks with a few different commercial real estate agents, and so it's not like we haven't been thinking about it or
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I bring this up because I just didn't want, if we are gonna look at any kind of fees or waivers and stuff, that you guys already had someone in mind, and maybe there's another restaurant saying, well, what the heck, we never had an opportunity to look at it, and we wanna
yeah.
grow. So, no, it's great.
right, okay, yeah.
And then with the feed and grain store, I think the original idea was to try and preserve what we could, and there was nothing worth preserving on that?
I think it can be preserved. It would pretty much be down to the bare bones, and it wouldn't be much different than just starting new. And I think we all decide, well, it's not for me to say, there might be someone else who says something different, but we kind of decided that it was historical from maybe the 60s or 70s, I'm not sure when it was built, not the 1800s or anything like that, and maybe not worth the effort to keep it. But like I said, we'd be open to keeping it if that was necessary.
The patio idea is fantastic on the roof. I think a previous trustee and made consensus if we could have a patio on the top of the feed grain area, but if it's structurally not gonna work. So what's gonna go where this new building is on that second floor? Is that just for more light?
It's just for more light, kind of aesthetics, yeah. It's not a real second floor.
One thing, Mayor Karsbeck, I may mention, we we received a letter from the Historical Society about the feed store after the last time we talked about it, or maybe it was back in 2020. It's been quite some time. And they were supportive of keeping the feed store, obviously. They recommended that we go back and read through the 2004 commercial building survey that was done as part of kind of downtown historic designation. The only thing I could really find in there of much significance was that it was included in that survey, but it was not suitable for national historic registration. It wasn't, would not qualify for state historic designation. It was not a contributing factor in a national historical district. It would not be included as one of those factors. So to me, I felt like it's worth considering. I think, as Mr. Sherlin pointed out, basically gutting it down to the concrete walls and starting from scratch. And in some respect, it may just be simpler to start new. But I think that's yeah.
Literally scratch it.
Scratch, yeah. So I think that's a decision the board needs to make. But from a practical standpoint, at least according to that survey, its historical significance was certainly much lower than many of the other buildings in town that would qualify for National Historic
Right.
Registry or State Historic Registry or contribute to the National Historic Designation for the district, none of which that building would have qualified for,
Like
according
the
to the
big
report as I read it.
Yeah.
The old bank building would probably.
Yeah, I think,
qualify.
yeah.
Bank
and Mike-
building is
yeah,
absolutely
briefly
not
mentioned
going
that,
away,
yeah.
and we've,
But it
Right.
would significantly be more qualifiable for
correct.
historic designation.
Yeah, and that's this building here on the left.
Yeah. And I, personally, not time for comments, I guess, but it's an Art Deco building, but what you got in place there also looks really neat. And I'll leave it at that. Other questions?
I had a few things. Just overall, I really appreciate the form and the function of the development. I really like the concept. I think it makes sense. Going forward, if we decide to go forward, I just want you to be aware of materiality and finishes on these products. Making sure they're respectful of not only the neighborhoods, but also kind of the historical context of the area. So, other than that, I really appreciate the design you guys have laid out here for us.
Great. Thank you. Just yours.
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. I like the idea of rooftop space. If there's ever a question, I think get the open space up on the roof. It helps with sight lines. It helps keep the noise off of the street, off of the residential area. In the wintertime, you get more sun instead of sitting behind a brick wall. I did have a question. I know this might be kind of early in process. I'd just like to know, with the alleyway that you were talking about on the north side that is proposed to access the garages, what is the idea for the border there? Is it just green open space? And my second question are those proposed parking spaces on the west hand side, are those for permit parking only for the apartments, or would that be
They are for the townhomes, the parking is for the townhomes, right?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, so with a permit, I don't know how we have to do that, but yeah, it is designed for those townhomes. The border to the north on the top side, that's what you're talking about, the green, yeah. So right now, that shaded box, you can kind of see that's a row of garages on the townhomes to the north. So it'll butt up to that, basically the back of those, a wall. I don't know if we've gotten this far, but we might end up doing a fence along that whole north side. So it'll be pretty much either a wall or a fence, maybe with this small strip. Looks like that's kind of what you're proposing is a
Yeah,
little strip.
landscape buffer.
Or landscape buffer, okay.
Columnar trees and shrubs and grasses, just kind of get a little buffer.
If you paved all that instead of putting like a little strip of grass, would it allow for some parallel parking? Is there enough space there that someone could still pull in and out of the garage with a car parked there?
I don't think there is. I think, what do we have, 24 feet?
Yeah, we got 24
Which
feet.
20 is probably pushing it for back out room, so we gave it a little extra, but I don't think enough to have any parking.
I will say, I think, having lived in the townhomes over on 8th Street, one of the cool things about the way those were oriented was that space behind the garage functions a lot like outdoor living space. You know, like in the early summer, everybody's rolling up their garage doors. You'd roll your barbecue out onto the, right behind the garage and set up your lawn chairs in the shade in the garage. And it was kind of a cool little spot, where folks would spill out into that alley. So even though there's not a lot of, I only mentioned that because one of the things we talked about at first was not a lot of outdoor space for those townhomes. Now they're urban, obviously, and intended to not really have a lot of outdoor space. But still, that alley will function a little bit as like some communal space in kind of a fun, cool way.
Just something cooler than asphalt back there.
Yeah, you'd be
Some
surprised.
AstroTurf.
It didn't stop anybody at the.
Can you drive on AstroTurf?
Yeah.
No, don't do AstroTurf.
You could. It just wouldn't look very good for very long.
That's all I had.
The last time we saw this, those townhomes were actually oriented east-west with the idea being, work low, live high. Is there a reason why that kind of got erased? Was it just floor plan?
Well,
Yeah, kind of floor plan. And at that time, it wasn't live work, it was all townhome. I think it was proposed or suggested maybe they turn into live work. Yeah, it's just kind of how it evolved over time. And then, like Walt said, we toured a couple sites in Denver, some successful developments down there, back and forth with the architect, with TB Group, with, Walt and Chris, and that's kind of what we landed on.
Yeah, it was a request that we asked them to bring the fronts facing south.
Right, yeah, and I remember there was issue like parking and.
Because we wanted to be kind of community in the
Right.
middle, get rid of the parking spaces that were in the middle, push them to the west, and kind of bring it all to kind of encircle.
Yeah, I think that,
the middle part.
that also helped that, to have kind of a gathering place in the middle rather than a clear line between commercial and residential with a big wall next, to separate them.
Because otherwise there would have just been a big wall to the restaurant patio and stuff.
Yeah, and those townhomes were really wide. They faced Third Street originally, but the garages were
They were detached.
were detached and they were off the alley, so that whole north half of the property was all the residential.
Big fan of the flat roof for those townhomes.
Okay.
Regarding kind of the aesthetic, because just a block south of that, you can see a lot of those brick facades up front.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no problem with pitched roofs, but in terms of keeping that downtown aesthetic, I think that flat roof design is much better.
Yeah, okay, great.
Like even walking around. I guess, and this is just kind of former life doing roofing. In terms of drainage with the sidewalks where you have all the essentially snow melt and everything like that, you got French drains beneath, or you got to kind of plumb it under somewhere? Or?
Probably, in the way the architect has it drawn, if you look at the aerial, is not quite how the flat roof will be, but yes, they haven't gotten, I guess, that far, but there will definitely be a lot of consideration for
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah, I'm only concerned just because as winter comes along and the snow melt comes in, it's between
Right.
two buildings, so it'll freeze all day except thaw. in the middle.
Yeah, and I think it's going to appear flat, but it'll really be probably like a 212 pitch. So it'll still, but drainage will still be a big concern, so.
Okay. Last comment, I guess, the old feed store. I know, worth and historical values and all that stuff. It's not really something you can put a price tag to, but I guess, is there any chance that we could pull aspects of that to the facade of the commercial
Yeah.
in that corner?
Yeah.
Just design wise, or even little pieces and parts of it so that you can kind of see it, what it used to be, and we've made it better and it still kind of nods to the past.
I think that's definitely an option. We have did discuss that. We discussed keeping it and, refurbishing it. We discussed redoing it with basically the same look, or like you said, taking some elements from it, which, as you can see, we didn't really end up with many elements from it, but we tried to really target, we wanted kind of the ag look, we wanted the brick look, we were trying to keep all the historic, Old Town Berthoud feel, ag feel, but yet have it kind of new and fresh. But anyway, back to the feed building, definitely open to that if that's something that is,
It's the
you
new
would
brand
like to
feed
see, or open to that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I know it's really hard to pull aspects of the current feed store into this design because the building's purple.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to make it
Yeah.
look sexy.
Yeah.
So I get that. I'm just trying to think if we can kind of like those cross-hatch windows, which,
Right.
just those aesthetics, I guess.
Yeah.
Just to kind of nod to it, because I understand that it would make more sense on property side to have it be multi-use, which actually last question, and I can actually dig then in, is this building gonna be one business, two business, or is it just kind of business needs?
That specific building, that will depend on, the tenant who comes along. Most likely it'll be more than one. But if the first, a good fit comes along at the beginning that wants the entire building, then that's great, yeah. But most likely it'll be two or three.
It'd be like, what you'd see in here at Hayes Market, for instance, right? Like that space around where the fitness area was, when that fitness center changed, you kind of take other pieces of the building, doing your tenant finishes inside, but it's structurally sufficient that you can just break it up with interior non-structural walls.
Sure. Okay, yeah.
Based on future tenants.
Otherwise, everything's great. I like the rooftop dining, opening up that space, making it visible. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Other questions, suggestions?
I have a follow-up. Go ahead.
I just want to echo what Mayor Pro Tem Grace said about the feed store, because I think this design is really aesthetic, and I think it incorporates the neighboring buildings really well. So as much as we've fought and contested for that building, I think I'd like to at least see nods of that structure, the feed store, incorporated in that, because it may not be structurally sound to keep. But if we can make sure that people recognize some of those elements, I think that would honor that history and honor the Historical Society coming forward. Because I think if they do that, to me, that's a sign that it is relevant and important to our history. So anything we can do, but I do like what you've done. This is very, very beautiful. It's going to upscale that corner a lot while maintaining that feel. So thank you.
Take the scale from in there and make it some street art. Like pull it right up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
It's a big scale, so.
Yeah.
Only
Yeah, true.
one of like 4 left or something like that, I think. What was it that Mark was saying?
The scale we would certainly keep. That will not be sent to the landfill.
No, that'll be going to museum.
Trustee Ayers, that was you. Yeah, I had another engineering question for you. Is there any difference for back to the flat roofs on the townhomes? Is there any engineering difference that would need to go into the design if, say, the tenants of the complex wanted to use the rooftop as like a community garden or as open space or something like that? Just trying to get, ideas for getting rid of some of the black tar off the.
Yeah, you're saying instead of the restaurant dining or?
No, on the
side?
townhomes. So
Oh,
it could,
townhomes, oh,
is there anything
okay.
that needs to be done
Okay.
structurally in the design in order to carry the weight of like a community garden or a
There
living
would be
roof or?
some, it would definitely be a consideration. It could be handled, but it would at least be a consideration, something to talk about.
I mean,
yeah.
especially since, yes, they're urban, but they don't have a lot of green and a lot of sort of usable space. So
Yeah.
it might be, since they are flat roofs with small pitches, it might be
Yeah.
something to think about
Right, yeah,
to give them that
we
space to.
A living roof would be cool.
Okay, I did say, is there anything else with the presentation? Okay, wanted to open it up to the public real quick for comments. Is there anyone in the audience? Okay.
Real quick, thank you all for listening. I can share with you, we're excited about what you saw. We're excited to work with Mike. We know that Mike does great work throughout the town. Whatever he does is quality. He's also willing to listen and work with us and work with you. So I think we have somebody that we can engage with to make this happen. And as we speak, as you're listening, I know there's people watching that are interested in this site and possibly moving on to this site once things begin to happen. And I know the owners of the grain elevator and that whole side that Mike referenced, they're interested in going forward with that, and they're excited about this project as well. So you couple that along with what we're going to be doing on 3rd Street. This whole area, this 3rd Street corridor block is going to be a really exciting project for you all and for us over the next 1 to 2 years. So thank you very much, and looking forward to other comments.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would wish to speak to this? Sure.
Hello again, Brian Locke, 706 7th Street. I don't know what the sound speaker system is, but Tim can't hear you at all. May, I can kind of hear you. I am losing my hearing. I don't know what it's like for you guys. Can you hear out there what they're saying? Nobody can hear? It's very
Well,
frustrating.
let's just start over then.
Just giving you a heads up, because it's like the bad breath syndrome. If you got it, you don't know until somebody tells you. So anyways, heads up on that. I was one of those guys that was all gung-ho about trying to save the feed store and the scale. I gotta say, the design, it looks great. I'm really impressed. One question I have, and I couldn't hear this part, the fee simple, I don't understand what that means, where the townhomes are. And I'm also curious how difficult it would be. Let's say that you were a jewelry designer and you wanted to live in the townhome, and to make it possible, like with zoning or like a passageway from the pedestrian area, to have accessing the whole little pedestrian area, like, oh, I live upstairs and I'm selling my beautiful silver jewelry that I've made, and people had a couple of drinks and they're gonna come over and buy some jewelry. I wonder, that's like the one little tweak that would be really interesting if something could happen along those lines, where through zoning and maybe a couple of design changes, that those townhomes could be a possible little gig for someone starting out that wants to live upstairs and open up a 10 by 12 room to the public and sell stuff. But it looks great. I think the project's come a long way, and I would say it's kind of like I buy, sell, collect, restore old vintage motorcycles, and when you have this beautiful old motorcycle and you sell it in 6 months, you won't have the money and you'll never be able to get that motorbike again. So I'm glad that everyone's really taking this so seriously, because it is an anchor and a catalyst for that area. But I would just love to see if you guys could explore a way to make those townhomes, so if a jeweler or an artist wanted to try and make a living there, that they could. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Karsbeck?
Yes.
We do have, in our development code, in chapter 30, the municipal code, there is provisions for home occupations, and how those can be done. And so I think they would apply here just fine. So there may be, depending on the site, we'd have to go through those, but we do allow for home occupations, and under certain criteria, I know, like, it can't be more than 30% of the floor area of the home. You can't have more than one employee that works there, that's not, family living in the home. There's some of those details, but I think what Mr. Lack is describing is certainly possible, even within our existing code.
No, I'm not bringing up the fee simple thing. We did discuss it, but.
Yeah, so just, all that means is that those townhomes would be owned privately. They wouldn't be owned by one entity and rented out, but they would be sold like a single-family dwelling might be. And, owner occupied.
Owner occupied the entire time.
Not, there's no restriction against them renting them out, I suppose, just like any other single-family dwelling, but they would be sold independently. It wouldn't be like an apartment building where one owner owns the whole building and then leases out all the different spaces.
The parking spots on the west side, specifically, if they own one lot, do they also own that parking spot even if they're not attached?
I don't think we've gotten that far, to be honest.
Just curious.
Other than that, I think the parking there was intended for visitors primarily. So if you have somebody coming over for dinner, you have a space for them to park. Because hopefully this will be a really busy area and parking will be at a premium. That's a good problem to have.
All right, anyone else? Yeah.
Yvonne Bly, 420 Michigan.
If you could go over to the podium, please. Thank you.
Just a question, maybe I missed this in an earlier meeting. What about the townhouses that exist already on the back side there? What's happening with them? And are these new townhouses gonna be affordable for people? Or are we going to, again, everything so high price that the normal person can't afford to live here anymore?
Thank you. Administrator Kirk, I probably
Yeah.
better all these coming from you, so.
That's okay, I can answer both of those. With respect to the townhomes, nothing's changing there. Those are not owned as part of this project. They'll continue to exist just like they do today. We're not suggesting any changes there. And then from an affordability standpoint, these will be market rate. So they'll sell for what people are willing to pay for them. They're not intended to be deed-restricted affordable housing.
I remember the history on that too, but, yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. I'll just bring up real quick, we did talk about affordable and maybe trying to make some of these affordable. In the initial discussions, it just was not commercially viable if we tried to segment out some of these and mandate that the developer kept them at a certain level. And that was my memory. I don't know. So that's the answer to that, but how does everyone feel? Anything strongly want changed? I got some thoughts, but Trustee Hardy, anything?
I do like the new building instead of the green. I'm kind of curious to see how it would look if it was still kind of taken along the flat roof like every other building in the development there in downtown. So just kind of wondering if there's a flat roof option for the corner building there, or if we want to stay with the vaulted skylight ceiling or anything. But other than that, that's about the only comment I had. I like looks like everything that we discussed in the last meeting was taken into account, moving the parking, moving the apartments or the townhomes, getting that outdoor dining, seating all consolidated. So I think it looks really nice, and everything else that's planned down there is gonna fit in really nicely.
Yeah, I think the consensus I'm getting, and would be to look at more options. I mean, the grain store building looks nice, this new barn kind of concept, but see if we could play around with that old Art Deco look and preserve some of it, and see if we can look at something two-story, either a flat roof or somehow having access to that second story. Does that sound appropriate?
And Mayor Karsbeck, if I may, if you like what you've seen so far, our suggestion is that we do an executive session, because this would be a property transaction. We need to talk about what, kind of what position we would take in negotiations, and that's no offense to Mike, but we don't want to have those conversations with him in the room, not initially. And so, our suggestion would be if they're part of our negotiating strategy might be, we're willing to agree to the terms you've requested, but under these conditions, some which may include how the site's laid out. So part of that might be part of our negotiating strategy, and it suggests that if we have some of those in particular, that we consider those part of our executive session as appropriate.
Yeah, so I guess we're not making suggestions tonight? You want to keep that to the
You
executive
can,
session?
feel free. I'm just
'Cause I still
suggesting
want
that
to go
we
through this and
also.
not have any suggestions be given to staff, and then
Sure.
it comes into executive session and we're like, oh, well, we wanted to look at other options.
Yeah, please do.
Trustee Sarcella, anything else?
I'm very pleased with it, and I trust that we'll at least acknowledge the history in that property, so I think it's gonna be beautiful.
Trustee Murphy?
I have no additional comments. I feel comfortable moving forward to exec session, as long as you guys have taken our comments and agree with, at least take a look. So, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace?
Nothing new to add, everything looks great.
I feel the same, and I just want to thank you. I remember this from the very beginning, and Brian behind you, the whole property was about to sell for $400,000, and luckily some trustees stopped that, including Brian, and this whole process started to have something really special downtown, and this really will be a catalyst, along with the 3rd Street redevelopment and having that grain elevator reactivated with some retail. It's going to be a really fantastic area, so it's really exciting to see what's gonna go on there. And yeah, I think you're trying to do this from a viable perspective, but any opportunity, commercial opportunity we can get that might still work financially viable for you to see if we can make any improvements or additions to the Green Store building. And my only point, it looks fantastic what it is now too. But if we could look at just C2 options or another option. But-
I do have one more question.
Trustee Hardy?
I don't know if you have the answer, I'm assuming you would, but do you have an estimated cost of a project to complete it as we see it here?
I don't exactly.
You might need to speak up. I know there's an audio issue. If you come to the front.
I don't have an exact number.
Did you turn the volume up?
A few $1 million is kind of a rough number, but a few $1 million.
That's a ballpark.
Yeah.
Awesome, okay. Any other questions, suggestions? Okay, so we need to set a date.
If you're okay, we'll add an executive session to our next meeting.
Okay.
Come back and have that conversation.
Awesome, okay. I'll be going action. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We good to move on to the next agenda? Okay, let's move right on to the Richardson Bike Park update, and this is by our Deputy Town Administrator, Jeremy Olinger.
Jeremy, if you want, you can go up to view and just tell, and put it to go to full screen, and it'll. Oh,
No, view.
no, just click on view, the view tab at the top.
Or on the left, above tools.
Right there.
I got it.
Do you help me?
It's not my computer.
There we go.
So not to make a, good evening trustees, good evening Mr. Mayor, not to make a bigger deal out of it, but it is challenging. I'm probably the second hardest hearing in the rooms, but just for those guys, I talk loud so I'll help them, but it is hard, it is challenging tonight.
Thank you.
I don't know if we can do anything but maybe behind the scenes, but I'll help it by, I
Oh, we gotta
talk
speak up,
loud in
that's
general.
true. I know we're doing, this has been an ongoing issue, but we had a whole AV overhaul, and that's probably part of the reasons why we're still figuring out kinks, but yeah, we'll speak up.
Absolutely, I just wanted to do
Are you
it.
able to hear better in the back of the room now, or?
It's almost more,
It's
it's,
echo. There's a weird whisper.
yeah, it needs treble or something. Everybody needs to talk like Will.
Am I talking too loud?
There we go.
Well, I'm also now worried about an echo with the recording. Do we have to, is there anything?
So I have it turned up now, and you're still hearing the echo?
It whispers and it echoes, and I can't understand anything anybody is saying
It's terrible.
at all. Yeah. It's like you're whispering up there.
Okay, we'll try to speak up. Is there anything we can do right now, I guess, besides just turning it off?
It's, well, you don't wanna, it's like up as loud without having it do that squeaky noise.
Okay,
And it may be getting a little reverb and echo because we've turned it up so loud.
Okay, let's get going.
Project your voice like an actor. Pretty simple.
Take Mr. Boyd's lesson from high school.
Mr. Olinger?
Hold on a moment.
Go for it, Jeremy.
So I just wanted to, tonight's item is the bike park, the Richardson Bike Park. We're gonna give you a little update. We were here in April. Just a short recap to get through a little bit how we got here. We've been following the last couple of years the 2018 master plan. Port meeting in 2020, another port meeting in 2021. Working with staff and our design consultants at subcontract of ARC for design of the bike park. We went into budget session last year, appropriated some money to do the bike park as we were finishing up design. Came back in January of this year to the board to approve an RFP. That's a request for proposal to put the bike park out to bid and get it constructed with the hopes of coming back here and awarding that bid and getting moving on that. went back to in March just to let the port know that it was still moving forward. Back in April to you all that night to review that bid work, the projections, the design, the budget, those types of things. Back in that meeting in April, if you recall, there was some public comment, quite a few comments, a lot of concerns that were raised that night. There wasn't really a formal decision after that meeting to move forward from you all for staff. Basically what we kind of was a suggestion we kind of agreed to is that we would take a look at the park again, staff would go back to consultants. We'd listen to that, a lot of that feedback and those concerns from that night and revise the plan a little bit. So this is, a lot of this stuff is just for recap from last presentation. Here's our update, kind of what I've been going through. Some of those concerns from that night was vehicle access to the park from Meadowlark, vehicle traffic, Meadowlark parking for events, increasing the traffic in the neighborhood, safety and security generally, a lot of loitering and overnight camping, homelessness, that type of thing. They want to know park hours, specifically, I think, when the sun went down, I believe, is the way I took it. Parking area, kind of twofold. Parking area, what was the perceived or the plan use and the proximity to the resident homes in Matthews Farm, and then the noise levels. So we took that back to Wink, our consultants, who's been working on the master plan, and we took that back to him, those concerns, back in May. And just kind of worked with our in-house, or not in-house, but baseline, someone that works with us a lot, our engineering department contract, and just gave them a little bit, a heads up, kind of what it would take. We haven't really gone further in depth, more than just letting them know and kind of, and see if there's anything we need to look out for as we made these changes per the design.
Jeremy, just to remind you, just to speak up as much as you can, if you just would, yeah, as much as you can.
I thought I was yelling, I'm sorry. Sorry, folks. During that time, and just for context, just public outreach since our April meeting, just for context, it's not for, I don't really keep score, but just so you guys have an idea where what staff did internally. We sent out an informational letter about the design changes with a map, or the design to residents within 1,000 feet of that property line, matching our development, what we do for developments. We met with two of the homeowners, the concerns, internally with staff at Town Hall, with myself and Chris and Keith. Chris and I got 2 or 3 emails that we responded to with similar concerns that I went through earlier, and responded to those emails, as well as we got 2 or 3 emails in support and to continue the bike park. So that's just all for context. So that's just what we deal with. That doesn't mean there wasn't good and bad out there on social media and tonight. It's just what we dealt with, so you guys have an idea. So the design is on the right. I'm gonna see how I set this up. So that's just blown up. So on the, you'll see that this is a new design. We've kind of blown it up there. We started at, we're 300 feet, moved the parking lot around the pond, moved everything up north, basically away from the homes, the best we could within design and within our other phases of the park, and logistically looking at water lines and sewer connections and that sort of thing. So what you're looking at now is the left side's the new design, the right side's the old design, just for context again. And so you kind of get how we move the bike park up, obviously compressed it a little bit to make that happen. We feel that there's great comments, great concerns. If you can say there are great concerns. I mean, we were 100 feet with the parking. We understood that after that meeting. We moved that around. We moved that away from the lake, away from the trees, The security issue, we feel that it's better by the highway. It'll be lit at night. There'll be a camera system to help out that security. It'll adhere to park hours, dawn till dusk. There shouldn't be anybody back there that after dusk. And then basically, obviously, it'll be, giving a more of a buffer, an extended buffer, 3 times the buffer from the homes. So that's what we did with the new design. And obviously some increased trees and that sort of thing. We haven't talked what that looks like, but mainly, tree buffer, noise buffer, site buffers, things like that. Basically, that's still a plan and things like that, but I mainly wanted to stick in here. I know there's a few folks behind me that want to talk to you all as well. And so basically, I just want to recap a little bit, show you what staff's been working on since April, and give you the new design. And tonight, basically, we're asking to kind of get your feedback and how that's going to go as per the new design and steps forward.
If I could just piggyback on what Jeremy just said, I think from our perspective, what we're looking for from you tonight is, do you want us to continue to move forward in this direction, or do you want us to pivot and take a new direction entirely? There was a lot of question and discussion about, eliminating the access from Meadowlark and installing an access on the north end of the bike park. It's not practical today. There's a lot of reasons we can go into if you'd like, but I can just say, we've evaluated all those possibilities. We cannot do that today, or I wouldn't recommend that we do. It doesn't mean that we can't do that in the future as we develop the rest of Richardson Park, and that's just a few years away, I hope. But I think from our perspective, we'll either need to move forward with this design or something very substantially similar, or wait and build this bike park as part of the complete development of Richardson Park, so that it can be solely accessed from the north. Outside of that, and I don't mean this to be obstinate in any way, we're open to all the suggestions you might have, but I think this has been pretty well vetted over the last several years. I don't think there's a lot of significant changes we could make without adding significant cost to moving things around, and could we put this over here and this over here. I think this is kind of as far as we can get the parking lot and the restroom away from the existing homes to the south, and still access from Meadowlark. And outside of that, again, I think if this plan isn't suitable, our recommendation would be that you just put the project on hold. We'll incorporate it into the rest of the Richardson Park design, and it could get developed in the future when that park is built.
Questions for staff?
I have a question. Can you go to the 30,000-foot view of the whole park? And I realize this is really early because the park isn't, the main park isn't designed. This one, yeah. So
This one?
This one, yeah. So 15 is maintenance emergency access. Is it possible, I guess, that if there is an event where there is going to be more than the sort of casual traffic to the bike park specifically, is this the kind of thing that could be opened up for competitors or for the event only, and then close it back off for regular access?
Our intent is that we would not have events here until such time as the rest of the park would be built. This would just be used for general park use, primarily because I don't think that event parking is suitable on the south end of the project as it sits today. The maintenance access outlined here, that this concept plan has changed. It's all the same elements. If you think about them as puzzle pieces, they've been completely rearranged. All the elements are there, but they're all completely rearranged in our current schematic designs for Richardson Park.
Right, and I'm not expecting it to, for number 15 there, the maintenance road that goes through the entire park, I'm not expecting that to be the same in any way, shape, or form when the entire park is completed. My only question is, since some of the residents are concerned about access, especially with higher flow in the future when it is open up for any sort of event, could those maintenance trails, is there any precedent around town for those maintenance trails to be opened up as sort of on-street parking, but just for the event? Like if there's a bike rally or something, can competitors and spectators at least utilize that maintenance to get to the bike park instead of having to go park in established parking lot in the south. Does that
The
make sense?
simple answer to that is yes. I think there are opportunities for a variety of ways to handle those kinds of things in the future, especially in the context of the rest of the design of Richardson Park. If the rest of Richardson Park never got developed and we wanted to have an event, we could actually just park people in the existing farm fields on the north end. That wouldn't be a suitable access for normal day use,
Right.
but it could be easily accommodated for event parking in the future.
Other than that question, I thank you. I like the redesign. I think it is a big compromise to a lot of the positive and negative comments and feedback. On the most southern edge, and once again, I realize this is very preliminary, but I forgot I have to speak up. Is there a possibility to put, besides the trees and the shrubs in the new schematic, any sort of berm or anything like that, just to kind of get a little bit of the sight distance corrected as well? Or is that cost prohibitive or et cetera?
Just some we'd work with our landscape architect and things like that, whatever made sense, and those ideas are, that we put in berms in before, and that's something, if we move forward, obviously, you know, we would talk to some of those homeowners, they could have, you know, I don't know if it's better for them to have trees or berm or something like that, whatever they wanna, at that point, look at it, that's, we get there.
I think that's all I had.
Okay. Trustee Hardy, anything for staff?
No, I like it.
Trustee Sorcelli?
I think, well, first of all, thank you staff for turning this around so quickly after feedback. That was a really fast response, so thank you. And I think there were a lot of concessions that addressed the concerns. My only concern for those neighbors is the traffic on Meadowlark and what their concerns are gonna be for that. So I would like to hear what maybe some solutions are if that gets heavy trafficked in there and how to handle that traffic flow. But other than that, I'm pleased with this.
Trustee Murphy?
I'll second trustee Ayers and trustee Sorcelli's comments. I generally appreciate the modified design, the expanded buffer. I think we should look at berming on the south side. And I appreciate the additional outreach and review. So, with traffic in mind on Meadowlark in the future, I really like the new design and I think we can move forward.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I like, again, kind of repeating everybody else's input on that. Do have a couple, I guess, questions regarding visibility or security. I think cameras and lights, at CSU, they have those light poles. If you're kind of feeling unsafe, you can push a button, lights the area up, and literally get a hotline. Is that something that we could do out there, seeing as it is a little bit further away from everything? Is that something that we could, at least, it's not a huge change in the design, but more just kind of an amenity that might be added?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great ideas, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, really proud of the staff for getting in touch with local homeowners and working around to get this thing to fit, so I'm just kind of curious to see, I don't know, I guess where everything's gonna start playing out.
My only question, I actually brought up with Administrator Kirk before the meeting. I had a thought of, seemed like some of the feedback was around traffic. And if we looked at parking over at this upcoming commercial area in kind of like a partnership with the developer, and I know we need a bus stop out at 287, if that could also serve all those points at once. And I know it seemed like you might be open, but we hadn't looked at that before. It was a little far, but.
So, yeah, we talked about that this afternoon. I had some time to think about it. There is trailhead parking, if you'll recall, at the West Side Crossing as part of the neighborhood master plan to connect to that trail on the far west side of the property that runs along 287. And that trail will connect up to the bike park as well. So that could be used. My concern is, and I think this is, the reality is if parking is not accessible on site, but we build the bike park, then people just park on Meadowlark as close as they can go and take the bike out and go in that way. And so it's actually better, in my opinion, to have a suitable parking lot on site so that people are not encouraged to park out on Meadowlark. They
Yeah.
could park on Meadowlark. There's sufficient width for the majority of that road, really even towards the north end, at least on one side of the road. But we don't want to encourage parking out there, even if it is public and legal.
I think that makes a lot of sense. It's farther than I thought after I talked to you, and it also, not only Meadowlark, but I think Exeter Street, right next to it, would turn into accidental parking too, so I agree with that. I have no other questions. If it's all right with everybody, we can turn it over to the public.
Yep.
Okay, this time we'll go over to the public comment. I'll start with those that signed up for this, and then we'll just open it up to see if anyone else would like to speak that did not have a chance to sign up. So we can start with, is it Kathleen Runge? And if you could please state your name and address for the record, and also keep comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you very much.
My name's Kathleen Runge, and I live at 1718 Exeter Street. And whose idea was it to open up Meadowlark into competitions and all this going on? The police say that they can't properly protect us, and it's gonna be a mess. We're retired. There's a lot of retired people in our area in Village of Matthews Farms. And this is ridiculous. It should go from the north. The park is fine, let that be, but leave us alone and not have to fight people from dumping garbage, walking through our yards, parking in front of our homes. Not good. Not a good situation at all. Can we put up road barriers on Exeter Street so nobody can get in there? It's a public road, but it's our road. And it's all gonna come to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. During public comment, we won't be responding to each question. Just know several of us are writing these down. We can see here. Katie Dockery. And I apologize, folks, if I pronounce your name wrong.
Hello, my name is Katie Dockery. I'm at 381 Capitol Reef Street. Just want to apologize, I'm not a public speaker, but I am here to support my son, who will be speaking after me, who is an avid biker and is passionate about having activities in his hometown. I'm in full support of getting the bike park going here in Berthoud. Mountain biking is a healthy lifestyle activity for whole families can do together, and what we do. Parks like Valmount and Boulder draw quality people that support the local economy in a healthy way. There's positive, respectful mountain bikers. They are not loitering or out at midnight. The type of people who would use this park spend $2,000 to $6,000 per bike on a full suspension mountain bike, and that's just the bike alone. The gear, add the bike ride, the bike racks, all of that. As a community, I think we need to move forward quickly about promoting as much constructive outside Colorado activities that we can, especially for our youth. We have local bike shops, breweries, eating establishments, all that will greatly benefit from having people come to Berthoud for this activity. We don't have a river running through our town, our building, or something like this, but this will draw outdoor enthusiasts to our area, and those are the best type of local visitors we can ask for. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
So I will have Owen Dockery speak now.
I know I did emotionally want to respond. If we could hold up any applause for either side, thank you very much. Yes, Owen.
So say your name and your background.
Owen Dockery, 381 Capitol Reef Street. My name is Owen, and I would like Berthoud to build this bike park. I love to bike, and I would like to have a bike park in my hometown so I don't have to travel to Erie or Belmont or the mountains. My whole family likes to bike, and it's important to me that my family can get together in the hometown to bike. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Owen. Appreciate that. Thank you both. Lauren Rupp.
Hi, my name's Lauren Roth. I live at 1735 Exeter. I just want to start out, I don't want to be misconstrued in any of this. I know I've spoken at other meetings, sent emails. At no point have I not wanted the bike park. I have kids, they want to bike in the bike park. I want the bike park. I just want it done in the most thoughtful way for all the residents. It's easy to live on the other side of town and say, I really want a bike park, but not have to look at it every day and deal with the impact of it on your neighborhood. We have, I spoke last time and said, there are 500 people going to Valmont Bike Park a day. It's 12 acres larger than what we're going to build. So, nobody can anticipate what that's going to look like. And if we can do anything to at least mitigate some of the traffic and things that we've talked about, unfortunately, I came into this meeting with the thought that I'd already been defeated. And that's fine if that's the way it is. We've suggested access from the north, putting in a soft surface parking lot, the same as you would off of Meadowlark. I don't quite understand why that can't be done and then be made permanent once the park on the north end is made permanent. I've talked with Chris Kirk, and I guess I don't understand, and nobody's really made any sort of financial presentation to say this is what this would cost versus this is what this would cost. All it's been is like, oh, if we do this, we can do it now, and if we do that, we have to wait years. And that's an emotional way to tell people something. If you can bring facts and say, this is what this costs and this is what this costs, then I think people see it a little differently. Putting in a soft surface parking lot that can, like I said, be made permanent later on when the park is done being designed, you can still have the bike park with a parking lot off of County Road 17, and people can still access it. I guess I just don't understand. We, as a community, need to look at things in terms of development. I just don't understand. We, as a community, need to look at things in terms of development and realize that even though it's a park, it's still development. It's still going in and taking away an area that is frequently used by wildlife: eagles, osprey, elk, bear, turkeys, all kinds of things. And that will be gone. That completely will be gone. And so when we go in and we develop every square foot of this town without any thought to that, then you see the elk getting hit on 287. You see animals getting killed everywhere because they're getting into our community. There were elk over in Mary's Farm. There was a bobcat in town. I just feel like we need to have some thought to, creating a space where animals can get to the lake, that kind of a thing. That's part of what we had talked about originally. And unfortunately, I think that this is like an out of control train and it's already past us. So I appreciate your time. I hope you'll take some of that into consideration, that we could do this maybe even the same timeline. Right now, we can't even, my understanding was we can't afford the pump track, or we weren't going to look at the pump track because the pump track was going to push us way out of budget. And so maybe by combining the two ends and only building one parking lot on the north end, we could use that money to build the pump track that everybody's very excited about. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wally Flieger?
Close.
Close. Dang.
My name is Wally Flieger. I live at 920 Wilshire Drive. I'm also on the board of directors for the Village of Matthews Farms. So the concerns I'm bringing you today aren't just mine, but it's collective from the neighbors and that I represent. Unfortunately, I was like a lot of people. I have no idea where all of you stand, whether you think this is a good idea, a bad idea, or it needs to be postponed because I couldn't hear. But from my perspective, I have been asking, and no one has answered the question, what's the utilization of the park? On any given day, how many people can we expect to be using the park? And of that, how are they going to get there? Is it all going to be on Meadowlark? Is it going to be cars? Is it going to be vans? Is it going to be campers? Is it going to be motorhomes? Because I know that's the problem they have at other bike parks. But they have a lot of parking. You don't. I think there's, 15, 20 spaces? So if you expect to have 40 or 50 people in there a day, and their parents are gonna bring their cars and supervise them while they are there, where are you gonna put the cars? I disagree with your perspective that the north end of Middle Arc is wide enough. It is not. If you put cars on both sides and you have an emergency, you will not get an emergency vehicle into that park. Unfortunately, when our neighborhood was built, those streets are very narrow. If we have parking on both sides of the street, we cannot get a fire engine in there or an ambulance. And we've had that situation in the past because we have families with children with disabilities. And if parking occurs on both sides of the streets in our neighborhood, and one of those childs needs an ambulance, it's not gonna happen. I'd like the idea of a bike park. I like the idea of having kids have an outlet, even some older kids that like to bike. But I would like to see it a little more comprehensive in the planning. Let's just do it and figure out how we're gonna use Metal Arc. It ought to be part of a comprehensive plan. And you ought to think about how much it's gonna be utilized. Because we don't know, no one can answer that question. And my house backs up to Metal Arc, and there's plenty of traffic there now. And on a bad day, you can't get out onto 56. And I've asked for what are we gonna do with Metal Arc? And nobody gives me an answer. So I think we need to see a comprehensive plan that says, here's what Metal Arc's gonna look like. We've got a development that's planned. I think it all ought to all go together
We've hit
instead of doing
3-minute
it
mark,
piecemeal.
sir. Do appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. We already did Lynn Larson. Ralph Walsh?
Sir, pretty well what I had concerns on in the parking on Metal Arc, I'll let it ride so you don't have to hear it. I'm on the county line side.
Gotcha, okay.
And don't have a sidewalk.
Right.
We just as soon not have parking on our side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Walsh echoes parking concerns. Let's see. Aaron, oh, we already did Aaron too. Blake Blewett?
Blake Blewett, 1733 Exeter Street. I border the park. I just want to point out this new plan was kind of done in a vacuum. So we brought some things up. The city came back with this plan and now notified us about it. Look, again, we're not against the park. Truly not against the park. I mean, I get it. I understand, why people want it, but I don't understand what the rush is on this side right now. That's what's got me tied up. There's parks all over the place. Single track, Lyons, Boulder, Broomfield, Erie, Fort Collins. I don't understand why this has to get done right now. I think it needs to be part of the comprehensive plan and not just to get this done. I think this current layout on Metal Arc does not address the concerns that we brought up. I think it mitigates a few things, but there's nothing about the LCSO that's been figured out, or Matthews Farm residents for that matter, in my opinion. And I realize this has been in plan since 2018. I totally get that, but it changed in 2021, and that's why you guys are hearing opposition about it now. I feel like this train has left the station, and we're just getting run over and just getting our concerns dismissed. And I'm pretty upset about it, to tell you that. That's why we spent the time to go meet, and pretty much in that meeting, I think any of the things we brought up, which specifically for me to flip the plan, no access on Metal Arc, come up from the north side, just so it can't be done. That's kind of what I got out of the meeting. That, there was no working with us on it, just can't be done. This is how we're doing it. Unfortunately, Matthews Farm and Metal Arc residents, we got to endure this thing forever. We don't know what the usage is going to be. We're stuck with it. So I think it's time to slow this thing down and to rethink it. I know we probably got tons of people saying they want it done. That's fine, but they don't live there. I'd like to see this flipped from north to south. I'd like to see the entrance, parking lot, and bathrooms all up on the north end. I understand that might be some change, but reality is there's no impact to residents if that's switched on the north side. Leave Meadowlark non-public access. But I'd like to see that flipped, and respectfully, I'd ask that you do not approve the park the way it is. It's gonna impact us up on Meadows Farm and, Meadowlark. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill Workman?
Bill Workman, 1727 Exeter. And again, I'm not against the park. I'm actually for the park. I'm the biggest kid you're gonna find, and I appreciate him coming up and saying what he said. It was really good. I agree with, I'll tell you this. I've either competed, coached, or recreated in parks for the easy 34 years. And I've seen all different designs. I've competed up and down the state. And the one thing I've noticed, the safest parks have the correct access. It's one way in, one way out. And sometimes when you're young, you're like, oh my God, I gotta go 3 stops this way. I'm all the way in the back of the park. Like you go to Roland Moore up at Fort Collins. You're playing sand volleyball, which I did. I literally had to take an extra 25 minutes to get there. What I did notice is that the safety of everybody's stuff around there was protected, because they knew anybody that was gonna do bad stuff, they had to go out that same direction. Almost always had a cop, car, or presence at the front. So I'm all for the bike park, and I would challenge you. What is the savings of making the Meadowlark access? Is it 10%? Is it 15%? We haven't seen numbers, I get it. This is the second time to this. I do appreciate what you did. I do appreciate you moving the park, but that's right where an osprey's been building a nest. It is still right in that main corridor that we talk about. So that doesn't address, in my opinion, it doesn't address the corridor that we see animals all the time. I think if we could try to put the actual parking by that pump track is gonna be legit. When you guys put that in, that's gonna be your bread and butter. So I go to the Belmont Bike Park. You have any idea how many cars come through there on a Saturday? I would challenge you, 200 to 300 cars. That thing is insane. That's what I'm saying, is if we think about this right, you got your pump park, you got your parking lot, and then we have access, different chutes for beginner, medium, advanced. You don't have the same road to go to advanced that you do beginner, because I've seen it down at Belmont. Little kids getting run over trying to go to that beginner thing. I'm all for it. I think it's awesome. I'll be there. I'm just saying, if we think about it, I'd really challenge you to see how much is that north access really worth? Is it worth losing a kid? I guarantee you not. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but the parking lot has to be built with that future phase 2, 3, that we're gonna have a pump park, the pump track, and we're gonna have competition. Then all it is just a little bit of expansion already thought out. But I would totally be for it. If we had the north access, I almost guarantee you that there's no way Meadowlark could handle 300 cars on a Saturday. I'm willing to help you guys, whatever you need. I do appreciate the hard work that you've already done, and I know you've been trying to get it done since 2018. That's gotta be frustrating. But I've always been taught that if you're gonna do something, do it right the first time. And I suggest realigning that parking up by where you would put that pump track, and then we can adjust, and you'd have different chutes for everybody. You're protected from the beginner to the expert, and the pump track would actually be visible from the.
Mr. Workman, we've we'll pass the 3-minute mark, but thank you very much. Appreciate that. That concludes those who've signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that has not signed up, wishes to speak? Okay, yep, raise your hand when I get, Mr. Lack, I guess we already stood up, and then
3 times. This will be my last time tonight, I promise.
Time's a charm.
Yeah, I mean, I love all the concessions that you guys have made here. I appreciate all the work that's been done on this. I don't want you to think I'm against the bike park, because I think the bike park would be great.
Mr. Lack, is it fair to say your address is 70?
Sorry, yes. Brian Lack, 706 7th Street. And I'm near Fickle Park, and every time there's a farmer's market or a movie night or anything happening in Fickle Park, the parking in front of my house is horrible. So anyways, I love the concessions that you guys have made here. Makes a lot of sense. I hope you guys can get the ball rolling on this. It's been in the works for a long time. Staff has put a lot into it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. We'll go over here to this, shoot your hand up next, and then I think there's one over here on the left.
Hi.
Hi.
Lori Klochak, 1000 Wilshire Drive.
Thank you.
We live in Village at Matthews Farm. We are bikers. I'm all for a bike path for the track. But again, it's the entrance off of Meadowlark. And another concern is we have a retail development going in at the end of the street. It's already hard to get out of Meadowlark on a normal day. Adding that traffic with the bike park and the retail, I don't know what the answer is going to be at the end of the street. I don't think they can do a roundabout. I don't think they can do a light. So that has entered into our concerns as well. And in our community, we have, we're with the width of the streets and everything else. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much.
I'm Tom Klochek. I'm her husband, 1000 Wilshire Drive. We back up to Meadowlark, bedrooms back there. I've lived here since 1985. It's a nice place to live. I share the sheriff's concerns. I'm former law enforcement. I'm, I guess, a pessimist. I think of what bad things could come, especially living so close. And these kids are great. I don't worry about these kids. They have responsible parents at that age. I worry about it at night when kids are coming in and making noise behind my house. And I just, I think it would be a great solution to not have that as an entry, come in from the north side. It's already, I don't understand why would be so difficult, even if you don't have plans to develop the rest of that. Just make it come in from that side, and I think that would solve it for us in our community. That's what I'm going to say. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lisa Gatt. We live at 932 Meadowlark Drive. On our side of the street, there is no sidewalk. I don't want cars lined up in front of my house all the way down Meadowlark. We are not the sidewalk street. I spoke with someone who I know in the neighborhood who knows someone who's in the planning committee, and she said that they're talking about making Meadowlark wider. I don't know if that's come up, but that means going into our property. Because, or digging up the sidewalk, because there is no way Meadowlark Drive can have cars on both sides and have it be safe. I grew up in Boulder. I've been to many athletic events, bike events. I bike 35 miles myself a day. I used to a couple of years ago. I'm all for biking. I'm all for the kids. But to put access coming through Meadowlark Drive does not make sense. It is a danger. It is a danger for people that live on the Meadowlark side. And if you're gonna think you're gonna make it bigger for access, I don't know how that's gonna work. Because you're gonna have to dig up big elm trees, you're gonna have to dig up all my trees, if you think you're gonna do it on our property. Or you're gonna have to dig up the whole sidewalk on the other side. I don't want people parked in front of my house. I don't want to be nervous to go outside at night and have strangers parked and coming in and out. At Boulder, these events are huge. You have 20 parking spaces for cars. Try about 150 if you think you're going to have these events at this park, because it is not going to work. And the people who are going to suffer are the people who live on Meadowlark, who live in the neighborhoods. If you're going ahead and you don't think this through, parking is huge. You want these big events with 20 parking spaces? Who? Hello?
So I'm Phil Gatt. I'm Lisa's husband. We live on one of those homes on the north end of the northeast side of Meadowlark that you were talking about. We do not want people parking in front of our house. We currently have nobody ever parking in front of our house. We have our mailbox out there. Postman needs to access our mailbox. We've got a lot of dogs. We don't want strangers parking. We don't understand why the planning committee can't replan. We like the idea of a bike park. We like the idea of an open space and the cattle that used to be there better. But the idea of a bike park is fine. We agree with most of the other people that had the same complaint, that we really feel like the access should be from the north end, not from the quiet, dead-end street that we currently live on.
Thank you very much. Anyone else should speak? Oh, we got, okay. Can we get your names?
I'm Rowan, and I live on 633 Great Basin Court.
633 Great Basin Court.
I'm Paxton Altamira, and I live on Franklin Avenue.
What was your first name, sorry?
Paxton.
Paxton, okay, thanks.
You want to start?
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I like biking. When I'm at school, all I can think about is when I get home, I want to go to the bike park and BMX. And like people were saying, we have all these bike parks already in Colorado, but with gas prices so high, people don't want to pay for gas to drive out there, and it would just be nice to have one here in Berthoud. It doesn't have to be big, it'd just be nice to have a good one.
I think that we need a bike park because I don't like driving to Boulder, Longmont, Loveland to go to a bike park, and I just wish that we could have one here that I could ride my bike from my house to there and then just hang out and bike because I like biking.
And I respect all the people that live in those neighborhoods, that the parking is going to be a bigger issue, and I respect that, but I would like to have a bike park, so.
Yeah, same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Both. If anyone else, sir.
Hi, everybody. My name's Steve Locke. I live at 1114 Wilshire Drive. My backyard backs to Meadowlark. I would be the second house in or back from the proposed entrance off of Meadowlark. And I just want to reiterate what everyone else has said. Not against the bike park, just against people accessing it off of Meadowlark. You know, it's a quiet little area right now, and if they go through with this entrance on Meadowlark, it's not going to be nice and peaceful and quiet anymore. So I'm just reiterating what Blake said, and find a way to access it from the north and leave us alone in our little quaint little community. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Sir.
I'm Ben
Benjamin Hobson.
Sorry, what was the first name again?
Benjamin.
Benjamin, okay, Benjamin. Thanks.
817 Greenwood Drive.
So we would drive, okay, thank you, go ahead.
The reason I want a bike park in Berthoud is because it helps me build my confidence in mountain biking skills. And for experienced riders, it helps them learn more extreme skills. I would like to be able to ride my bike to a bike park instead of driving to a different town. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin. What else?
Carolyn Hobson, 817 Greenwood Drive. I have 2 young boys who love going to bike parks. We go to Valmont and Boulder, and we're lucky enough to frequent the one in Steamboat Springs. I'd like to share our experience and hopefully address some of the concerns of the residents. Both of those towns are very big mountain biking and cycling communities, so the bike parks are obviously a big draw. Valmont can get very busy, the parking lot can get full, but it's in Boulder. It's in a town 10 times the size of Berthoud with a bike community that far surpasses our little town. In Steamboat, the bike park is on the Yampa River Core Trail, so most people ride their bikes there. I have never seen that parking lot full, not even on a busy Saturday. It's popular and it's used, but parking is just not an issue there. The sport itself is inherently very quiet, other than kids encouraging each other to go off the bigger jump or moms yelling, "Are you bleeding?" across the park. It's very quiet. There are other things that the town could have considered to be in that area, such as baseball fields or pickleball, that would be much more disruptive to the neighbors. Many residents who live in town are not going to drive there. We, thanks to the new sidewalk on Berthoud Parkway, it's a quick bike ride from Hillsdale to the park. It would take us longer to load our bikes, drive there, and unload our bikes than it would for us to ride there. All these kids that are here are gonna ride their bikes there. There won't be tons of parking on a day-to-day basis. On the occasion that the town hosts events, which I'm not even sure that that's even been seriously discussed yet within the rec department, I'm not sure where that came from. I imagine it'll be a couple times a year like they're starting to do with the skate park. I don't envision it being every weekend. There's gonna be hundreds of cars coming to this bike park. Personally, I would love that. I think it would be great if it was a regional draw and it brought people to our community and brought them to our restaurants and our shops, but that's just not the reality. I don't want to convince you that it's not going to be used a lot, but realistically, during the school year, during the day, it's going to get very little use. After school, on a nice day, sure, kids are going to ride their bikes there. On the weekends, yeah, hopefully people from other towns drive to the park and use it, but I just don't think it's going to be cars down the street on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. I just don't think waiting for the rest of the park to be developed is worth pushing back this great project that's been in the works for years. Even adding the entrance at the north end would require significant trail and sidewalk work along Berthoud Parkway. There is no crosswalk there. I know that's potentially in the works, but that's certainly not a safe entrance
We've
now.
hit the 3-minute mark
Okay.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else, sir?
What are the proposed hours for this park anyway?
Hold on, we can just stick with the public, or the public comment real quick.
My name's Joe Stein. I'm on 1104 Wilshire Drive. My house backs up to Wilshire. It's not a very big backyard, but it's got a nice patio there. We enjoy it. We enjoy where we live, and it's very peaceful. And I'm afraid a lot of things I've heard would really be a loss for us. We'd have to give up much of what we enjoy most about where we live. Thanks.
Thank you very much for speaking. Anyone else?
Hi,
Hi.
Jess Cameron, 609 East Michigan. These are my two boys. And we moved to Berthoud in the fall, and we have really just found it so easy to settle in here. We are loving it. And one of the things about a year ago when we started to narrow down towns we were looking at, and Berthoud was like our #1 pick, one of the things I found out about was this bike park. And my kids who are obsessed with mountain biking were very excited to hear about it. So we definitely really want this to go forward sooner than later because kids don't stay kids forever. And if this keeps getting pushed back, then they may not get to use it. And I think they wanted to say a little bit too. Good. It's okay, go ahead. Nice and loud.
I'm Jamie and I live on 609 East Michigan Ave. I think that this bike park should be built because a lot of people in Berthoud love biking and we don't really have this in our town. And also it'd be a big pastime to ride your bike here.
And the boys love to ride their bikes around, and really right now I don't have anywhere safe to just send them from the house. And this would be something that we'd be totally comfortable sending them to ride their bikes to, which is obviously not an issue for parking. So we would love for it to move forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? Six.
Good evening, Len Golden Finnig, 1000 Lake Avenue, right by the Turner track. Football season happens, track season happens, community events happen, and people get along. Good people living here in Berthoud. I served as chairman of the Port Committee from 2016 to 2020. I'd like to share some history. Huge thanks goes to town staff for acquiring, retaining, and planning for this Richardson Farm property. With all the development and population explosion here in the North Front Range, thankfully, that property has not ended up as a strip mall. Then we'd be having a whole bunch of different conversations. Rather, it's a space for the people of Berthoud to enjoy. Regional high schools have mountain bike teams. There are college teams that provide scholarships. A bike park is an enabler, these younger speakers up here, for those types of opportunities that's available to them. This small Berthoud Bike Park is not a regional draw. So keep that in mind. We only need to look at other established bike parks and the ones that continue to be built to see the positive impact for their citizens, and in contrast to some of the concerns about crime and vagrancy. In Berthoud, we can look at Hillsdale Park and the Berthoud Reservoir as great passive quality of life amenities. There's no problems at those locations. An old saying goes, people vote with their wallets. Citizens voted a few years ago to add a Berthoud sales tax specifically for recreational amenities. That's huge. Citizens have spoken. They want recreation close to home. The Berthoud Bike Park has been a part of town plans for several years. Staff's done an excellent job communicating the plans with the public. Early last year, they advertised a public survey, received significant contributions. As far as adjustments that they've made, at the detriment of the bike park sizing capacity by moving the parking lot, that's called compromise. Hey, they did a good thing there. Additionally, with the growing trail system, as many kids have mentioned, riding to the bike park is going to be a primary mode of transportation for many Berthoud residents. It's much less of a hassle loading bikes up in a vehicle, driving, unloading, then doing all your activities, then reversing all that, loading back up and heading back home. So riding to the trail, to the bike park is going to be a primary mode of transportation. Funding is ready, the contract is ready. Please deliver this amenity to the people who said that they are willing to pay for and they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dina. I live at 1723 Exeter Street, and y'all are less imposing back there. So just you take that. You know, it's been kind of interesting because I think that I just want to make a point that people who live at the village at Matthews Farms, there's no effort or nothing that says we don't want a bike park there. I think if you listen to that piece of it, that's definitely there. I think the piece that is the concerning part is the entrance. We've talked about Exeter Street and Meadowlark Street. When I drive on Meadowlark Street, I see wonderful children on their bicycles going back and forth and waiting for the school bus stop. You see moms out there, dads out there pushing their kids in strollers, taking walks. These are the kind of people that are going to be impacted by the traffic increase that will happen with a bike park. It would be very short-sighted to say that there wasn't going to be traffic increase. We're talking about change and growth all over this area. That is just going to be part of what happens with it. I would hope that this committee, that everybody hearing, would really take into consideration the things that are being shared by the residents at Meadowlark, at Village Matthews Farm. This isn't necessarily the most comfortable thing to come here and talk to y'all about, but I hope you know that it's important to us and it has great value, and that's why we come out of our comfort zone and we come here to express to you what it matters to us. I'm all excited. I think a bike park would be great, but I really hope that y'all will consider doing a north entrance and listening to us who live there and help us continue to enjoy living in Berthoud and knowing that the people that represent us hear us and can represent us, and we can continue to build this community together.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public comment then and bring it back to the board. There's some questions in that before we discuss, if someone blurted out the hours. Do you have anything established right now?
I think, as Jeremy mentioned, dawn to dusk. Those are our standard hours in all of our park facilities, with the exception of Wagner, where we have a lighted skate park and some other activities that go on beyond dusk.
Has there been any thought about parking mitigation on Exeter somehow?
You know, in the instance where that was a problem, we could put up signs that say no public parking, those kinds of things. I don't foresee that being an issue. The number of 20 parking spaces was thrown out. What we're planning is actually more than 30. So I know that doesn't sound like a significant increase beyond that, but for context, kind of the main bike park parking area at Valmont is approximately 43 spaces. It's a gravel parking lot like this with curb stops. And that's for a park that's, Valmont is roughly 45 acres in total, right? If you just include total land area. Ours is about 25 acres in total land area, so a little more than half the size. Valmont does have a very large asphalt parking lot. They just repaved on the south, I guess that would be southeast side of that park, but there's two large skate parks there, a dog park. There's a lot of other park amenities that wouldn't be included here. From a traffic standpoint, for context, during a peak hour, during a 1 hour time period at a peak time of the day, which is usually like the morning traffic hour and the afternoon traffic hour, right? A planning number for a restaurant or a gas station would be 150 trips a day. For a facility like this, or per hour, 150 trips per hour at that peak time, or more, depending on the ultimate use. What we're talking about here is probably 15 or less during peak hour. So you're talking about one car every 4 minutes going down Meadowlark in that condition. And if you average that out over the course of a 12-hour day, that's probably 300 visitors plus or minus that could accommodate from a traffic standpoint. From an event standpoint, certainly, I would agree. A large event would not be suitable at this location in its current condition. And I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again, I think there's no intent and we wouldn't host events until the rest of the park was developed, when there's literally hundreds of parking spaces on the north end of that park for the ball fields, the aquatics facilities, the other amenities that will be included in that park in the future. And in that condition, it might be suitable to host an event there and load traffic from the north for a large event of that magnitude. Going through my list of questions, Mayor Karsbeck, if you'd like me to stop.
No, yeah, that's good at the questions, so you're doing, yeah, thanks.
You know, so again, in terms of how many people are gonna be using the park, you know, we have to estimate, right? That's like saying, you know, I'm gonna open an ice cream shop and I know exactly how many people are gonna show up the next day. We don't. It will certainly be busier the first few weeks it's open, just like any retail store is, any new amenity of any kind, it gets more traffic in the first few weeks. And so we'll be really cognizant of that and try to mitigate in the condition that you wanted to move forward here. But we would expect on an average, you know, busy day, 250 to 300 people in that park. And again, I think that's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 trips per hour, plus or minus in cars. The street is currently wide enough for vehicle access. I agree that if there's parking on both sides of the street, that it would not be for emergency vehicle access. We would prohibit or intend to prohibit parking on the east side of the road where there's no curb. And we could do that with some signage. We've done that in other areas of town. Let's see. Meadowlark is intended to have a signal as part of the West Side Crossing development. As the board might recall, during the planning process, they're required to do a comprehensive traffic study by traffic engineers. It was obvious in that traffic study and all the future plans that in future years, Meadowlark couldn't sustain the amount of traffic that it would have there, and a signal would be necessary. That would have to be built as part of their development when they build the commercial areas. So a signal will be installed at Meadowlark. It can be done. CDOT's reviewed those concepts. A roundabout cannot be built, as you know, we've talked about this before, without purchasing and removing the quick corner gas station. There's just not enough room for a roundabout in the way it's currently laid out. But a signal will go in. For clarity, I think the comment was made, I don't remember who made it, that we've said as staff that moving the bike park can't be done. That's not true. What we're saying is that it can't be done today. It's not that we can absolutely build the bike park as part of the future Richardson. We could build it now. It would require re-engineering the site. The distance from Berthoud Parkway to go around the ravine on Richardson and down south to where the bike park would be located is about 5 times the distance from Meadowlark, from the end of Meadowlark. And so you could just kind of assume that there's probably 5 times the cost in utilities and the road construction. Those things aren't exactly scalable in that way, but it's pretty close because it's typically a linear foot cost for pipe and those kinds of things. So if it's 5 times the linear feet, it's probably about 5 times the cost. And the other reason why we don't want to install utilities today is that we're in the process of designing that park. And it's a little bit like if you install a railroad through the middle of town, that sets how your town develops in the future, right? Now you've got something you have to work around. And the same is true if we install utilities. That changes where we can locate buildings in the future and other things. Is that something we can't work around? No, but my recommendation is that we would do it all in concert. There's no reason to make physical improvements to the north end of Richardson Park in the midst of a future design and construction project. It makes a lot more sense for a lot of reasons. And I don't think those are emotional arguments. I think that there's practical ones, not to do that now and just do it all as one project. That's absolutely an option. We are telling you that's an option. The reality is it's going to be a couple of years. Widening of Meadowlark, we have no plans to widen Meadowlark today. And you know, if we were to widen Meadowlark and there isn't sufficient right-of-way, we'd have to go and acquire that right-of-way. We'd have to purchase it. or acquire it through condemnation, which, I wouldn't suggest that we do today. So we have no current plans to widen Meadowlark. I don't believe that's been discussed at all, or if it has, it hasn't been among our staff. Are there any other questions I missed? Sorry, those are the ones I wrote down, or answers to the questions
From the
that I
public,
heard.
I think that was what I had too. Yeah, I have questions too, but I think that's it from.
Do you mind if I share?
Yeah, we can start with you, go ahead.
Well, I don't usually do this, but I want to address the public that's here because I feel really impacted about how many amazing thoughts have been shared. And I just want to let you guys, I'm going to try to use my big girl voice, but it's only when my kids are in trouble, so I'm going to try to use that voice. Basically, from my perspective, I've been on this board for 2 years and I've followed this board for many years before. But this is the first time I've seen such a kind and respectful group of differing opinions come forward multiple times. And I also want you guys to know this is the first time I've seen this board not share their personal opinion about what should happen, but really listen and respond. So I want you to know we are hearing you and we are listening, and I'm seeing staff do their due diligence to respond to both. And I think whenever you have compromise, and this is what you tell your kids too, right, is if there's true compromise, everybody's unhappy, but there are some accommodations to both. And I just want you to know that from my perspective, I'm always gonna lean toward homeowners that have a long-term investment that are gonna be impacted by our decisions. Those are gonna probably take a precedence over an amenity for the community. However, I also am really encouraged to see so many families come forward and share their desire for this amenity. So I don't see that this is a freight train that's just going and you guys don't have impact. I think what you're doing is exactly what you're supposed to be doing, is making our job really hard, because we're trying to make not everybody happy, because we can't do that, but we can really try and get closer to a target. So I think we're not quite at the target. So I think maybe coming into this, we thought maybe we were getting close, but I'm sure the rest of the board's probably gonna feel similarly in that maybe we're not quite there yet. But this type of full room with your voices coming forward helps us make a more well-rounded decision. So I just wanna say thank you. Like that helps us feel like we're empowered by what you guys need and deserve to have in your community. And I also feel like both parties enjoy the nature and the beauty of Berthoud and want to preserve it or utilize it. So I think there's a lot more in common than not in common. So I think we're all going to be working toward that same goal too. So thank you for that input. And I think for me personally, I think making sure that Meadowlark isn't the access point to me seems kind of paramount as the #1 takeaway. The second takeaway is going to be that we move forward and continue to have this process move forward, which usually I don't like when we push things fast and don't take everything in consideration, but I think we need to keep making progress at least. But I think we're gonna have to make some adjustments still. So that's my 2 cents.
You guys might have asked a question real quick. You say utilities from Berthoud Parkway. Is there a way we could not have to worry about utilities? I mean, if it's dawn dusk, we don't really need lights, and so it's just a bathroom at that point?
We talked about that. I think the bathrooms I think are important. But we could use porta potties in the interim condition. So we could not extend sewer. We could not extend water. We could not extend electrical. That would also make it hard for us to put cameras out like we intended to. When you have a public facility that has no lights, that creates different problems potentially. But I think
I was saying no electric. I was thinking solar, but I think you have to put lights. But and so for the access from Berthoud Parkway would be the access from the north would be from Berthoud Parkway, and then through this utility road.
Yeah, so we also have an existing farm on Richardson, right? So we'd have to work with the farmer. I don't know that we'd have to put the road right through the middle of the farm, although that is where at least where I think we're going to suggest to you that it go in the future as part of the Richardson plan. Not dissimilar to what you saw in the concept plan, although split with multiple parking areas and multiple accesses so that Park of that magnitude, we don't just want one way in and one way out for all the amenities there.
So the service road will be public if one day from the north end to the south end. Is that, am I mistaken something here?
No, so we don't intend to run a road all the way from the north to the south. And by that, I mean from Berthoud Parkway to Meadowlark. We'll have maintenance access through there, but we wouldn't have public access to run through the entire park.
But they're saying access from the north.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about access to the north, and maybe, Jeremy, if you don't mind pulling up the overall concept plan map. What I think we'd be talking about is extending, and again, this is tough because we're working on a schematic design for Richardson Park right now that's not really reflected here, but I think this will give you some context. Where the parking lot terminates north of Loveland Reservoir, it's labeled number 11 there, just between the ball fields and the reservoir, right? Where that terminates, we'd be talking about extending the road around the ravine, which is that kind of heavily forested area. That ravine's like 30 feet deep, right? So we're not gonna go across it. But going around the north side and then down to the south, that area that's currently labeled 12 and 13, just west of the ravine, in addition to trails, we're suggesting in the schematic design that you'll see soon, that be disc golf. That's not bike park, so how far do we go down around that ravine? But that's about a half a mile drive or more across that field on a dirt road to access the north end of the bike park today. And we certainly wouldn't suggest paving it. And the expense associated with paving that today, that's something we would do in the future when we build Richardson Park. But again, you're talking about a little over a half mile to get down to the north end of the bike park.
And eventually, one day, when no matter how this goes, Meadowlark's gonna have access, right? Or
it doesn't have to.
Doesn't have to, okay. Is that the
We think
idea,
having
though?
a variety of accesses and parking locations for different amenities in the park makes sense. The only thing that would be accessed from Meadowlark, even in the future condition, would be the bike park.
Okay, because that was gonna be my thought.
It would just create additional access from the north in the future to the bike park, or parking for the bike park in the north in the future condition. But we would never we're not suggesting that we would create an access from Meadowlark to the rest of Richardson. And that wasn't the plan from the get-go.
And then for pedestrian and bike access, several brought it up. That's great to hear. They'd love to bike with their kids. That trail ends on 56 before Meadowlark, because there's no commercial development that finished it off. Is there any thoughts about putting that in as well so kids can actually bike to it?
The way you'd have to access it now, from a biking standpoint, you could access the trail on the north side of 56 down to Gateway Park Boulevard, and then you turn on Gateway and then use Tundra so you're not on 56. Tundra is the road in front of those townhomes. That would take you over to Meadowlark and then up Meadowlark to the bike park. You'd either have to ride in the road or on the sidewalk.
But we don't allow on the sidewalk. Don't you have to ride in the road? We don't have a bike lane.
We don't, there is a bike lane on a portion of Meadowlark. It terminates where the road narrows there in the county, where those county homes are on the east side of Meadowlark. We don't enforce riding bikes on sidewalks. Kids ride bikes on sidewalks all the time.
Yeah, I'm just saying if you're a family, you've got adults on the sidewalk. Okay, it's not a huge thing. Good. That's it for questions for me, I guess.
I have a question or a thought, and this might just be totally out of the blue, but what if the access from Meadowlark was only a bike path to the bike area, and then future parking was designated for the baseball area at a future time?
Yeah, we've talked about that. I believe personally, and I think most people will agree with me, if there's access from the south end of the park off of Meadowlark, even if it's bicycle only, people will park on Meadowlark and ride their bike in. So if there's not a parking lot on site, but it's still accessible from the south, it'll actually create more problems in my opinion.
But if we talked about parking signs for no parking for Exeter, and we put up a bike lane on Meadowlark, so they could only park on one side or no side, then there would be no option to kind of shortcut.
We could work some of those kind of specifics. There will be people parking on Meadowlark though, right? In order to go into the park in that condition.
You don't think we can send if we have a no parking sign there and people are parking there, then we just send law enforcement?
Are you suggesting eliminating parking on the entire stretch of Meadowlark?
Public parking.
On the east side at least.
Yeah, I guess we were gonna do that anyways, but I was just thinking if, yeah.
But
It's an option.
when are they breaking ground on the commercial?
I think the other thing that I think will happen is that people will go to access the park, then they won't be able to get in via vehicle because it's blocked off, and then they'll be trying to U-turn around in that what's not a cul-de-sac, and driving off the road and to try and make those turns, 3-point turning there at the end. It'd be a little messy.
Mhm.
My suggestion is if you don't want access from the south, that we shouldn't have access from the south.
Well, I think May's point, this was kind of my thought, and Tim just brought up the end of it, though, is maybe this is worth looking at, the parking that the commercial is gonna be putting in. And it doesn't sound like anyone in the room here is against the bike park. It's, a lot of this is just vehicular related, so if we could, we already got a trail going right to the bike park, it looks like, and it'll terminate at an area where we could put a temporary parking lot. I think that at least worth investigating.
Well, I was gonna suggest
Glad you
that,
brought it up, because I've kind of thought of that, I just didn't say it out loud, so I'm glad you did.
We would just have to manage making sure that there's no public parking happening, and that would be on staff and law enforcement to manage, so that's a management issue. But I think if we have proper signage for people who are driving toward the bike area that says there's no public parking, I don't know, it would be a learning curve, but I don't know. It's something that any of these ideas would be great to take back to maybe some of these concerned groups and see if they would approve of the consideration of that. So I think, or at least be willing to compromise, because I think that could be a good compromise.
no, I was gonna suggest that no parking be on the east side, and then signage be put in the parking lot at the bike park that says if no spaces, park at the commercial space, but I don't know when that's gonna be built. But at least redirect them to where they could park, rather than just say no parking.
Yeah.
And then they can ride their bike if the bike park's full, but I was gonna reiterate what some people said. I'm not gonna drive my car over there, cause I get there and the parking lot's full. I'm gonna drive home and then ride my bike out. Well, I'm just gonna get in the habit of riding my bike out there eventually. Or at least drive down to the commercial spot and park there and then ride the Meadowlark section, but.
And I do think it's important to be mindful of the fact that, a parking lot down at West Side Crossing is about a half mile away also, maybe a little less.
From the south end of West Side Crossing.
From the north end of the West Side Crossing, yeah. Approximately where that trailhead parking was planned in their development. And so, if you have I've been to Valmont before with my kids too. My 4-year-old likes to ride the pump track there. He's not gonna ride his bike a half mile to the pump track. So I think it changes the nature of how you lay out the site. And again, our intent is that the kids' amenities are close to the parking, right? And I think the same is true. The same is true of restrooms, right? Restrooms are typically located by the parking area for a lot of good reasons. And again, I think there's a belief that staff is somehow married to one idea or the other. We're not. We really aren't. We have no personal stake in any of this, for what it's worth. And I think, accessing the bike park from the north is a perfectly suitable solution. It's just not practical today. I don't think it's a good idea to do today. Both for cost reasons, I think it changes the access points significantly. It impacts the future design of the park. I think there's actually more public safety issues if you put it at the end of a half-mile long dirt road that has no electricity and all of those things I think actually create more problems in the future. I think it is perfectly suitable to incorporate the bike park into the future design of Richardson and build it all at one time to solve the problem of access from Meadowlark. Or the perceived problem from the access to Meadowlark. Again, I'm not sure, from a traffic planning standpoint, this will not be a significant traffic generator in the way that I think is imagined. And, you know, again, this is not gonna get the kind of traffic that a convenience store gets, right? That would be 10 times the amount of traffic we're talking about or more per hour. So.
If any of the trustees not spoken,
If I could speak, I'd like to thank all of the citizens for showing up. I mean, I think this is a hard decision for all of us, for sure. I'd like to thank also our young citizens who also came and spoke. I know that's not easy. The way I look at this personally is, you know, I've heard from a lot of voices, including those in the room, about what direction we should go with this. Right now, the general gist that I've come to is that we can move forward with this portion of the park right now, or we can move forward with the whole project in its totality down the road. And from the families that I've spoken to, and as the father of 3 kids that are avid bikers, this is an amenity that I don't think we should wait for. We've allocated the budget for this prior to me being on board. Staff has put in a lot of time and made revisions to this. I agree with a lot of the opposition, and the traffic concerns I do believe are valid. Where we go with that and what quantity or size of that problem exists after this gets built, I think is somewhat unknowable. But it's something I certainly am not going to forget about if we move forward on this. But as for the general welfare of the community, I believe it is the right time to move forward with this project. Just knowing that your concerns are heard. Even if I disagree with you, they are heard. And I will not forget about the concerns. And if they do reveal themselves to be serious in nature, we will work to address them. That's all I've got to say.
Trustee Ayers, you spoke to, I guess, Trustee Gray, Mayor Pro Tem.
That's hypothetically, I guess this could be for either of you. Say the parking lot gets put in, it's being used as is, so hypothetical land. Say time goes by, turns out this isn't working as well as we could, and as Richardson's getting developed and we're coming into that plan, could we flip that? So essentially, we have access from the south at this moment, turns out that's not working, we need to redesign it. Could we reroute that coming from the north? So essentially, we're kind of trying to play both sides are right. Is that an option financially? Is that a financial, an option logistically?
I mean, just like Chris talked about, I only think no if we're going to, like Chris talked about, put the pump track and the young kids are centric around the parking in the bathroom. If we were just to, like you said, it works, you know, unless we don't put we build the pump track and the kids track right next to the playground. If you flip then or take it away, then those amenities are down to south now. That's my only first thoughts.
Yeah, that
Not
would
saying
be
it
my
works or
only
doesn't work.
concern is that it would just change the flow of people in the park. You know, again, I think what Jeremy's saying is we designed certain amenities to be close to the parking lot. So if you flip that parking lot in the future, now those amenities are as far away from the parking lot as you can get. And I don't think that makes sense practically speaking.
So essentially, once this is kind of decided on, there's no real kind of undo, redo, so we can't really drive a line down from the north at that point. Because what you're essentially telling me is it's possible, but it's wasteful. And
it could be wasteful. I mean, could we move those amenities? Yeah, we could. It's just gonna cost money. But everything costs money. And so that's a decision that the board would have to weigh at that point. Is it worth spending the money to move those amenities to the north end of the park?
Okay.
Can you remind me why we're not putting it where like 12 and 13 is on the map? If there's a reason why the bike park can't go up at the north end and then have nature trails at the bottom?
No, there is no reason why it can't. I think that's what I've been saying from the very beginning. It can go on the north end. It just, that wasn't the plan from back in 2018. You know, this concept plan is 4.5 years old, plus or minus, and was driven by the community meetings, the port committee meetings, and the board meetings that we had at that time. And the idea was that the bike park could be accessed off Meadowlark. When you have a lot of uses like this in a park, it's nice to have separate accesses and separate parking areas for all these different amenities, because then they don't get, on a busy soccer Saturday, for instance, if all of your parking is on the north end, then perhaps you don't have any parking for the bike park on a busy soccer Saturday. If that's your only parking on site, right? That's kind of the idea of spreading some parking around, especially of a site that's shaped like this and it's this large. This wouldn't be an issue if it was all condensed and contained, but it wraps around that lake and it just changes the way the site lays out. It's not good or bad, it just is what it is.
I almost feel like it would solve all of the issues if we just moved it up north to that area, and you'd preserve the nature if that was just a scenic nature walking trail. And then it would also give us reason to delay building it out if it is part of that lump project. And the project should be comprehensively done together. Like, we don't want a piecemeal project for a lot of engineering reasons, so it would give a good excuse for holding off until the full project is complete, and then there would be no access or need to access from the south end at all, unless there was just a trail access, which would be nice for that neighborhood. Parking I could see being an issue. I think a lot of people, maybe the majority, would be bicycling into this area. But there does need to be maybe more additional parking on that side, which I can tell is a little crammed already, but it's just some things. I know I'm just trying to provide some solutions if there can be any.
Just for context for you also, 30 parking spaces doesn't sound like a lot, but the amount of parking spaces in front of if you're looking at Hayes Market, like from the end of the building where the fitness business is down to Grandpa's, like if you just took that rectangle, that's about 45 parking spaces plus or minus. For all those businesses, Hayes Market, Grandpa's, the chiropractor, the credit union. So 30 parking spaces is more than I think it seems in the grand context. And we're talking about a gravel parking lot that could be easily expanded to add 10 more spaces if we needed to. And I think there's plenty of room to do that by pushing this parking lot to the north end. It gives us the ability to add 10, 15, 20 parking spaces very inexpensively if we need to.
Okay, Trustee Arias, you had a chance to.
First of all, I couldn't have said it any better than Trustee Murphy, but thank you for everyone. And even though, we may or may not agree with the comments that were made, your voice is being heard. And sometimes that, we can't decide based on just that, right? I guess my question, to throw a random question out, is who specifically owns the road around the south end of Loveland Reservoir, and has anyone approached them for donating that to the city so we could access the bike park parking lot?
Were you talking about the maintenance road that goes over the dam?
Yeah.
I would assume it's the Loveland Lake and Ditch Company.
Just right there on the border of the bottom of the lake?
Yeah, and that is the dam there, so I highly doubt they would give us access to. Yeah, it's a good thought. It's a good thought, but
I mean, we're the majority owner. Maybe there's something we could work out with that.
We are, but
Kinda like we're talking to ourselves.
building a public access road on top of the dam, I think, is a problem for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, they closed a lot of dam access when 9/11 had.
Yeah.
Well, this isn't a terrorist scare. This is
Well,
a-
I know, but they were basically blocking road access to all dams because of that. Even some of my favorite fishing spots, I couldn't cross the dam anymore.
And my guess is that the homeowners there on the east side of Meadowlark and on the west side of Berthoud Parkway wouldn't really be pleased with us extending a road through their backyards for all intents and purposes.
Be another argument.
So, and Carl, I know you're not done yet. I just want to ask staff, what are you guys, we're not looking for a vote tonight. You're looking for some input. So no matter how this goes tonight, you're going to be coming back?
Yeah, because I think one of the reasons why we brought it to you in this condition, the notice that we sent out to the residents, we said the board could approve the project tonight. And I suppose technically you could. But we wanted them to be aware that that's a possibility. We don't want anybody to say you pulled the wool over our eyes and said you were just gonna talk about it and the board voted yes. In reality though, we've updated our cost estimate, but we haven't negotiated change orders with the contractor that had the low bid. Because if you'll recall, we put this on hold after we took bids for the project. So even with the changes, we still need to go back and deal with those change orders and finalize those costs. We've moved some of the bike park components around. I don't think that changes the cost, but we need to talk to the bike park building company as well. So there's still some details that we need to finalize. And as you know, the bike park itself was within our budget, or what bids we received was in the budget. The asphalt pump track, which I think is significant and really cool, and the term world class has been thrown around. I think it is legitimately of that kind of quality. Not that it's necessarily going to draw people from all over the world, right? But we're talking about the quality of that design. That component of the bike park itself is almost as expensive as the entire rest of the project. And so that's a decision we need to make. We do have the money for that if the board wants to spend it. It's just like, I say this all the time, we're not broke, you just gotta decide where you wanna spend our money, right? The town is healthy financially and our parks funds are healthy, so, can we build that? Yes, but we still need to make that decision. We haven't made that decision yet. So we'd like to bring it all back to you. I just don't wanna go through that exercise if the board says we're not gonna have access from Meadowlark. That's a waste of everyone's time. So our concern is, are we gonna move forward in this condition? Or are we gonna wait, redesign the project, look at access from the north, prohibit vehicle access from the south, and deal with the changes that naturally occur by flipping the park? They're not bad or good, they're just different. So that's the question we're asking you tonight, before we go spend the time and money to finish this piece or redesign the other.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Harris?
I think that was it. Based on what you just said as well, I think I'd like to see this again with the financial information with the updates, et cetera, because I kind of think if this moves forward in this design phase, that's a good conversation to have. But if, as Trustee Soroselli said, it ends up not coming through in this phase and it's moved forward in the future anyway, those designs are going to be in that future phase, and so it's not really good in any way, shape, or form for staff to do the extra work to kind of put forward different proposals of designs with the park up north, with the different access, since that's going to have to be part of the full phase anyway. So at this point, I'm happy at least seeing more information on this this design.
Come back?
Yeah.
I asked a question.
Yeah.
Interjected.
Has anyone, go ahead, Trustee Hardy.
The thought that keeps coming to my mind is I want to ditto what Sean said about, I've even told other people like this, that people always say we don't hear them, but usually it's because I didn't agree with them. But I do hear you. I've heard this argument quite a few times, being on planning commission and on the board for the last 4 years. We have streets that eventually look like they're gonna go someplace, but they haven't for like the last 20 years. But here we have this opportunity to continue Meadowlark like it was intended, because it's not curved off down there. I don't remember. I've ridden my bike up there, and it looks like it's a street that's gonna eventually go further north. But Cause like when we were doing the development over
We
Hampton.
can't hear a word you're saying back here.
What I'm getting to is that we have lots of situations in town where we build a new development and we have street stubs that were supposed to go into an empty farm field. And then that starts being developed with several hundred homes. And people say, well, I've lived on that street for 20 years, my kids have played there, and now you're gonna make it a street that goes into that neighborhood. Well, yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious that street was eventually gonna continue on. This plan's been going on for over 4 years, and everyone seems really surprised by it. To me, it's just a part of planning, that this shouldn't have been any surprise because of how long we've been talking about it. The street wasn't stubbed off as being a dead-end street like everybody wants it to be. We always have to honor people's property rights. It just happens to be, this is the town's property. If it was anybody else's property rights, we'd have to take that into consideration. I like the park design. I don't think it's gonna be as impactful as it is, but it's like Sean mentioned, if it does happen to become impactful, then we can work with that. But even again, you look at the 40 spaces that are down in front of Hayes Market, I always find a parking space down there, and Hayes Market is a big draw. So is the bike park gonna be a bigger draw than Hayes Market? I don't think so. Is there gonna be available parking nearby for those that do wanna drive their kids out there or themselves out there to use the park? Maybe, but then that's where we put up proper signs to say, hey, there's parking half mile down the road to commercial spots, and then we designate no parking zones on the east side of Meadowlark. I think it's all very solvable, very compatible, and people want amenities, people want this park, and we hear a lot about, I don't want this in my backyard a lot when the town's growing, and I've lived here my entire life. I've seen a lot of, don't want this in my backyard, and look at where we are today, and people forget about those situations, but anyway, that's just what I wanted to get in, that it's just part of how this town's growing.
It's really difficult to understand you, sir. I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you either in the back of the room, so.
Speak up, please. All right, anything else?
No, that's it, just, that's it.
Kind of spoken to.
I just think, I feel really convinced that the access off Meadowlark isn't the right path forward. And when I get frustrated when I hear something's been in the works for many years, because it doesn't mean that the citizens were notified. And we know there's been some communication issues in prior years. I think our current staff does a great job of trying to communicate and get that feedback. But we know there's room for improvement in that. We are hearing from citizens now that it is going to directly impact. And I feel like that means we need to arrange where that parking is gonna go, and it needs to not impact Meadowlark. And I don't know that that compromise still isn't to have only bike access only on that south end until we could have better parking up north. I do think we need to have this amenity, but I don't think we've figured out the solution to the problem yet.
Yeah. So I like the design of the park. I agree that there's a lot of unknowns, but that's also kind of life. Right now, I'm of the opinion that the way it's laid out right now, I'm in favor of it, and we can keep an eye on it. And as time goes by and as more information comes out, we too reserve the right to remain smart and change our mind and change the plan and make things work for as many people as possible. Just because this is dirt access doesn't mean it's like this permanently. It can shift.
Ma'am, go ahead.
This will be built before the rest of Richardson Park, which gives us time to watch and see how it goes. And if it turns out to be problematic, we can address that. If it turns out to be how we're anticipating it, then I think that, all of this is good information to move forward.
Two things. One, we're gonna hit this 9:30 thing in 4 minutes. So I think we can do this inside of this conversation. Is the board okay going past 9:30?
Yes.
Otherwise, we're done. Okay. So, and I came in here a little.
Sorry, Mayor, to interrupt, do we have to move to do that?
Oh, I do.
That's what the resolution says, but I think you're just seeking a consensus and then you'll ask for the motion. Or do you want to just ask for the motion now?
Well, I just thought it was consensus, but if we need to vote, we're gonna, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Resolution says you need a majority.
Deputy Clerk, can we have a roll call? Oh, we need a motion first, go
I'll
ahead.
make the motion to continue the meeting past 9:30.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, it's been seconded. Deputy Clerk, we have a roll call vote, please. I think in the future we can just voice vote this one.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Starsily,
Yes.
Mayor Kurznick.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, folks, for staying till this late. My thoughts were, I think that what you guys are saying is right, that a lot of you aren't against the bike park. To me, it just goes back to, we're really fighting vehicles, not this location, not this amenity, and then it's not only here, it's with a lot of neighborhoods too. I would definitely be showing up if I were you guys. If I live in Old Town and I bought my house expecting that I would have traffic in front of it and people parking. I don't expect you guys to have the same, so I totally support you guys coming out and I get that frustration. I would love for staff to investigate parking working with the developer of the Commons property to see if there's any partnership out there. I know it would be significantly farther, but there's a trail there already and there's planned for a trailhead. Maybe we can just push up that timing for the trailhead.
And I think that there's a possibility that we'll be done with Richardson before he's done with West Side Crossing.
And maybe we just do it on our own too. I'm just more or less asking if we get access. That might help. I think another thing staff really needs to look at is a plan for Tundra as being the pedestrian and bike corridor for people. I think we need something a little more official. So we do have a trail that just ends, like you said, on Gateway Boulevard. Well, that should continue, and I don't know, probably not cheap, but it would be nice to have a dedicated spot for people to walk on that's not in a neighborhood. Other than that, I'm for this going ahead, and I can definitely understand the residents' perspective. This is really tough for me, and I think the opportunity for definitely need to put up signage, and I would just do that automatically and not wait for that to be a problem. And if there's not a problem at all, then we just remove the signs. And I think, closing one side of the street, you wouldn't even have to put signs on that. You could just make it a separate, on Meadowlark, take one side and make it a protected bike lane. Just put out some bollards and cars can't park there. We don't need signs, and bicyclists have a safe space to bike into the park. So I would definitely support staff looking into that too. But I guess,
What side?
I think on the east, but I leave that up to staff. But as long as there's a pedestrian connection, and I think the great thing about separated bike lanes, or really any bike lane, is that it also prevents parking on the bike lane. So we can do two at once. I think it's tough. Like everyone else is saying, you're not gonna make everyone happy with this. But I ultimately am for this.
Move it to the north to solve all the problems.
Okay, anything else, trustees?
I like the bike lane idea with the bollards.
Okay.
Good idea.
Is that good for staff? All right, well, thank you, folks, all of you for coming out, and no matter what side you're on, really do appreciate you, and I hope you don't feel truly frustrated and unheard. If you wouldn't have shown up, then none of these improvements that we made in the interim would have happened. I think you showing up really helped out, and we're not done with this process yet. Do we want to take a break, or do we want to move on to the tree board?
To the tree board reports to get done.
Let's do it. Next agenda item is the tree committee appointments. And Trustee Murphy, you were on that, and Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
No, that's fine.
Just to clarify, was that the vote to move forward? Is that what that was?
We didn't vote, but yeah, there's direction for staff to look into these options, but you're coming back, right?
We're coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, keep adding input.
All right, let's restart back up. And if we're in the room, if you could avoid the side conversations. Thank you. So we're gonna move on to the tree committee appointments, and Mayor Pro Tem Grace and Sean Murphy were the board liaisons on that, or interviewers.
Yep.
Kick it off to you.
Okay, pretty short and sweet interview for tree advisory. Got to meet with two applicants, Hannah Daniels. As soon as this comes up. Randy, yeah. It was pretty cool. They were kind of opposite sides of the spectrum in terms of interest and capabilities, but they definitely show a lot of interest and promise and involvement in the town. Yeah, I was very interested with a lot of their answers. I'm actually really hopeful. I think that they're going to infuse a lot more energy into the tree advisory committee.
Yeah, I'll second everything Trustee Grace said here. Randy Neese comes from a project manager background. I think he brings a lot of skills on the construction side of things and how that integrates with our trees. And Hannah Daniels is just an interested citizen who does gardening, interested in kind of the xeric and fire kind of stipulations that have to do with what we specify from a tree perspective. No.
She does not like juniper trees.
But I think we both found them to be very qualified members to appoint on our tree committee, and I think we can move forward with both of the appointments, and we should be to full strength at that point.
Unbelievable. All right. Great. Is there, anyone like?
Yeah, no problem. I'll move to appoint Randy Neese and Hannah Daniels to the Town of Berthoud Tree Advisory Committee committee for a term of 2 years.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion been seconded. Any discussion on this? Deputy Clerk, may we roll call vote, please?
Mayor Karspeck,
Yes.
Trustee Sarasili,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Grace.
Yes.
Okay, well, congratulations to the candidates and their, the new members, and thank you to all the candidates. That is awesome. We're at a full committee there, so. All right, board, are we all right? Moving on to the final agenda item? Okay, let's do it. That's the final one, right? Yeah. We'll move on now to the final agenda item, that's town trustee vacancy, and this will be introduced by our town attorney, Attorney Smith, Aaron Smith. I'll
Thank
turn
you,
it over.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and trustees. I will reiterate what Clerk Samora told you when he was asked to tell you what happens next. And he spoke exactly right with regard to the state statute. In the event of a vacancy, the town board has full authority to fill that vacancy by appointment. There is a clock ticking under state statute. You must do so within 60 days of when the vacancy occurs. And if you are approaching that 60-day vacancy and you haven't done so, you would need to order an election. That election could be held as soon as practicable. The state statute does not require that it be held within so many days from that vote. So the vacancy of former trustee Stevens occurred on May 24th. I believe that's correct.
That's when he officially resigned.
That's when he officially resigned. And so 60 days from that would be July 23rd. You have only 2 meetings between now and July 23rd. You have a meeting on June 28th and a meeting on July 12th. You'd have to make the appointment at a public meeting as part of your regular business or call a special meeting. And so the state statute and the town municipal code does not specify the process that you have to use to fill that vacancy other than you have to vote on it. So I think that there are many approaches that this board has probably used in the past, and letters of intent, having folks apply, any of those are available, but the state statute says, and you have full authority to ignore all of those. So, I mean, you just have full discretion on how to do it. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Can we appoint Lonnie again right now?
That might be a short appointment.
Getting an RV or something, camp out here. Questions for staff or Attorney Smith? Staff, for the public, how much is an election or the last election, do we know? Like 30,000?
Yeah, I mean, if we run it ourselves, 30,000 plus or minus. I would strongly suggest, from a business perspective, we not host an election. But, you know, that's your prerogative and we can spend that money, but.
Yeah, and people were asking, I just wanted to get the number, I thought it was around 30. I was hearing 10, so 30 makes more sense.
So the scenario could be, we could take applications for appointment up until like July 15th and then have a special meeting, say Tuesday the 19th, to do interviews and an appointment.
That would be a tight turnaround, but you could. I mean, it's a tight turnaround from the time we close applications. If you wanna do 30 days, that would be plus or minus the 13th of next month, right? If we advertised tomorrow, might be a little. I
I'd rather
think
have
practically
the-
speaking, you just decide when you'd wanna close applications. It doesn't have to be 30 days, it doesn't have to be 10 days, it doesn't have to be, it needs to be less than 60 from the time Lonnie resigned.
I'm just thinking I'd rather have the interviews and appointment on its own meeting rather than on top of another agenda that may already be 2 hours long.
I think there's good sense to that,
Because if we get, say, 6 applicants, 15 minutes each.
I would suggest that you're not gonna wanna do that during a regular board meeting.
Exactly.
So at the last board meeting under reports, we talked about moving it to tonight to have this discussion. I just want to reaffirm that everyone's, we're okay with opening up applications to the public in some time frame, and then the board appointing from that application pool. Is that the direction? I mean, there's other options. I don't want to say there's only one, so, okay.
I would like to make a suggestion based on just community feedback I've been receiving, is that we just had an election cycle and there were 3 people who spent a lot of time and energy and money showing interest in this, and it was very recent. And so I think just the will of the public is that we consider one of those 3 in the application process instead of opening it up to those who maybe weren't previously interested or showing interest in the way that those 3 did. I think that would give us a shorter, more cleaner process for us as a board too. And I know that those 3 individuals have been very involved in different aspects of town government or helping in different capacities. So that would be my suggestion, is that we open it up to see if any of the 3 of them would be willing or interested and start there. And if they're not, then we can go to an election so that the people can pick the best fit for the board instead of us picking from a broad pool. That would, to me, sounds like a game of favorites.
So not the highest vote getter, but someone from, who's trying to help.
Well, just because we don't know if the 3 are interested still.
Well, that would be
And
what
so
the
it'd be nice to
application
know.
process is for. They'd apply just like anybody else could. It'd be open to all, not just those 3.
Well, and that's where I've heard concern, and I share the concern that if we open it up to a broad pool, we're eliminating public feedback in that process. And so maybe we talk about top vote getters in the last election cycle because we're involving public input, or we go to election cycle, in my opinion, just so that we're still showing some sort of effort to consider what the public they were having input and feedback into who should be on this board. And I think if it's just us picking, we eliminate their voice, and that sets a bad precedent for a really great, what I think is a great board that we have.
I have a comment as well on Trustee Sorrentali's comment. I'm also concerned about the way it looks when each board has the ability, the legal authority to appoint new board members. And specifically because it is so close to the last election. And my concern from many people that I've talked to who have, different opinions on how the position should be filled, it seems like it is playing favorites on the appointments. And so I guess a question for all of you guys would be, would the board be amenable to setting a future policy for this kind of thing so that in the future, boards don't really have the ability to just play favorites. It's within a certain amount of time frame. If someone, you know, resigns within X amount of time from the previous election, then we do one thing. And if the resignation happens after X amount of time after the recent election, then that might be more conducive to appointment just because the people who were in the election aren't necessarily available, or it might be easier to have someone who is maybe more knowledgeable in specific projects that are upcoming, that sort of thing, can fill a position for the remaining year term, basically. Is that on a legal standpoint, would
I
that
think the thing
even?
is that policy, yeah, but it's the state statute, so a future board could undo anything we do.
Yeah, states, you can't do anything that would conflict with the state statute. So the policy is basically, you get to fill the appointment in 60 days.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so yeah, my concern is just that,
I mean, but I don't wanna cut, but we could have a policy recommending that the board, whatever, yeah, okay.
do
Yeah, as long
X,
as
Y,
it's
or Z.
not
A requirement.
in conflict with the statute, so you'd have to,
'Cause-
we'd have to see what it is you're suggesting.
Sure.
But that's really a different topic than what you're
Right, because
talking
my
about.
concern is that it seems like, and there's also some incorrect information kind of circulating out there that it's kind of tradition that the next highest vote getter is the appointment. That's just not correct as far as I'm understanding. That's rarely ever happened in the past 10 appointments, basically. And my concern for future appointments is that if there is not a precedent, if there's not a best practice, if there's not a sort of operating procedure that's generally accepted, it seems unfair. That it may not be unfair, and I'm not saying that it is, but it seems to me that it could be construed as unfair.
I think, Mayor Karspeck, if I may, I think from my perspective, the process is what state statute allows, and that is for you to make an appointment. And how you determine to do that is your prerogative. The board has filled an appointment immediately after election, just in my time here, I've only been here for 4 years, and they did not appoint the next highest vote getter. So you absolutely can. You could appoint the second highest vote getter, you could appoint the third, you could appoint a planning commissioner, you could appoint anyone that qualifies to serve as an elected official in Colorado, right? So they had to have lived here for 12 months consecutively, and they have to be over 18 and all those details, right? But I think you have that flexibility, and so, you know, fairness is always in the eye of the beholder, right? But I think you shouldn't, as a board, feel constrained in that way. State statute is what gives you those constraints, and it says you can make an appointment or you can hold a special election.
And in essence, you were elected to do that, right? So, I mean, there is that, you're charged with that, and you were elected.
That's the voice.
And if I may, this is not an election, this is not a seat that's open for election, per se, right? This is the remaining term of someone who was elected. That's not exactly the same. This isn't an open seat in that person's no longer qualified for office. It's that person was elected to serve, they can't fulfill their term because of personal obligations that change the nature of their ability to do that. Again, I think you can approach this however you want.
And you, to be clear, you're talking about future things, so I get it.
Yeah, right. And so I guess with that clarified, I think I would be amenable to interviews, just because I think that opens it up to the recent election process because it is so soon afterwards, but it also opens it up to just the general public again. And I understand the concern is that you're sort of thinning out the pool, which, you know, could be unfair. But if it's my duty to appoint someone, then I would like to interview that person. I guess it's my is my thought.
And I would hate to discount what trustee Ayers said though about making a standard because it puts us in a tough spot as trustees if this continues to happen. The question comes back from the public, well, you didn't pick a top vote getter, or they question how it's been handled traditionally as a favorites type of thing. And I've seen that. I've seen it be, well, we all like this person the most, so we're just gonna appoint them whether or not the public agrees. And I just think that it sets a bad precedent for us and makes us look like we don't care what the public think. And that's, so I don't wanna necessarily throw that out because I think that was a really great solution for us going forward, that if we say this is the policy, we're gonna operate inside of that so that there's no question in the public anymore about how that seat's filled. Even though, like you said, the boards can throw it out at any given moment, but at least it sets a standard of how we wanna move forward so we honor the will of the public.
And there's some, for being a person that was in the appointment of the last one, and the one who, when Jeff and I ran against her in 2020, it was pretty straightforward. There was 2 trustees running for a mayoral seat, so the seat of the trustee was guaranteed to open up. There was no one outside of the board also running for mayor. So that opening that we had an appointment on, to me, was pretty black and white. And I voted for the next highest vote getter, which didn't win. I just my point here being that the one that we appointed, Paul Allebeck, though I did disagree with him at times, was a very informed trustee. And I think the board has to consider here, when we're thinking about the public, we also need just to consider about, it's not what we want, right? But what would, I mean, it helps, that's probably weighing into it, but who can get this job done? This is not a 4-year thing. This didn't happen in 3 years and 9 months. By the time this will all be, the applicant comes in, we'll have a year and a half before the election starts for that position. So who could take this on? And I think, I definitely think people who ran for office have immediately talked to the public, know the concerns. So I definitely think any of those candidates should be interviewed. I'm not so tied to that. I think there's also other good candidates. And one thing I would like to suggest or think about is that we should just be looking for people that have the interest and have the knowledge. So maybe we don't open it up to the general public. We open it up to the vote getters and to committee members and see if there's any interest there. I don't know if you feel about that.
I would totally back that as well as just general principle, that we should be not only looking at those that ran in the previous election, but we should also be looking at those who are currently volunteering in the committees and commissions, their free time, and have a proven track record for sure, and also the ability and knowledge of what's going on with town business. So I think it's certainly advisable to look at, if we do decide to do a closed pool, I think that's what that closed pool should look like, personally. If we were to do an open pool, I'm also open to that as well.
I guess I feel the same as you. I feel the same too, and I think it would be nice to keep it closed if we could go quicker. We know the candidates. It'd take a little longer to be open. I think at the end of the day, the vote, so I guess this is a hard thing to say, but the candidates that aren't on this dais lost. So democracy played out already. And it unfortunately didn't work out for those candidates, but you shouldn't feel obligated at the next one. The state said doesn't have to be that way, and precedent, there's no history behind it. And again, this is nothing to do with the next candidates. I'm just speaking that
History
they didn't win
sometimes
the
has
election.
precedence.
So, and I'd be open to either way. So open or closed, but if we do close, yes, I agree. We should do committees. I think they're very informed, and who knows? There might be someone interested. There may not be.
I agree with that.
No, I actually, I was actually gonna say what Mayor Karsbeck already said, and only to, again, you guys get to decide. I'm not suggesting you do it one way or the other, but to say that the people have spoken and the next highest vote getter should be appointed, which I don't think is what anyone's saying, but isn't really true, right? It's a little bit what Mayor Karsbeck said. The democratic process took place. They weren't elected. It's not to say that the public wouldn't support that. I don't know. But the only way you'll know is if you hold an election and let the public decide. And so unless you want to hold an election and let the public decide, you're never going to know if that's who the public actually wants to serve in that seat. And so I think in that context, from my perspective, You decide how to make the appointment. I think it's perfectly reasonable to take letters of interest or applications or however you want to do that and appoint. That's certainly been done here several times in the past. But again, I think that's your choice. But practically speaking, you'll never know what the public really wants unless you have an election. And my suggestion is that we don't have an election. Not for a term that will be, by the time the election's over, a year long.
A year, yeah. So I guess we just gotta make this one choice here of who we open up to. It sounds like we're all, I don't wanna rush, it sounds like we're all going through the application process.
Application process.
Is it just candidates or completely open or kind of a hybrid of open it up to committee members?
Has it
too?
ever been restricted in the past? I don't think it has.
I don't think there's any precedent in any way at all. I mean, look at Kelsey Byron for the other one we did. She was sitting in the back of the room.
Yeah.
So we didn't even have her apply.
Yeah.
But we needed someone. We
That's why I
had,
think it's good to have a closed.
And I don't think that
process.
Paul applied
Standard.
either. Former trustee Albeck, I don't believe we had an application, but maybe we did. I don't know, that was like 4 years ago.
we had something for us to
Seems
look
like it was
at because
1,000
there was a
years
bunch
ago.
of applicants.
Maybe so.
But I think it
There
was
were
very quick on that one, but with Kelsey's was in the back of the room. My thing is, I don't think there's any precedent of how we ever done anything.
I
So,
think it would show good faith for us to have a public process.
Mhm.
And I think closing it to those who are currently involved or ran would help us know that these are people who are invested, involved, have some background understanding. They're not coming in unknowing and they're gonna be people who are already committed to the operations of how a board functions. So I think committee and those who ran would help us at least have a narrow pool and then having a public process with the application and interviewing publicly would make that more open and public and not behind closed doors.
Well, the one thing I like about the open application is that there was one time, I thought, maybe it was planning commission, where someone wasn't on a current commission or whatever in Berthoud, but they had served on a commission in another community, so they had the experience. So that's where I wouldn't want to close off just to our current committees, because there might be someone in town that's just recently moved here from another community that might have past board or community committee background that could qualify as well. So that's where I've got a concern, with just limiting it to our current committee members.
okay.
No, I guess to kind of further Trustee Hardy's point, I mean, having experience on committees, having experience in the democratic process, yes, that could absolutely help. And an open application system, that could be something that we look upon and, okay, well, let's talk to them again later. Yeah, I'm open to either, as long as it's an application style system.
So before, I guess we got two things to cover, how totally open or open to with committees and previous candidates, and then a time frame. And the time frame would be, I don't know what's traditional for, well, we usually just post till filled, so.
Especially lately, we've just been posting jobs for open till filled, but this isn't a job, so I think it's reasonable to leave it open for at least a few weeks.
Okay, my only concern is that if something happens, we're pushing this to the limit at the maximum amount, then we go to election if we push this to the very end of July. So a 4-week application, would that get us, if we open this for 4 weeks, does that get us to the end of that kind of pushes it?
I think if you said, we closed applications on July 13th, that's 4 weeks from tomorrow, basically. I think I'm doing the math right. You would still have to hold a meeting the week of the 18th. The 19th was suggested, that's a normal Tuesday night. You could hold a special meeting on the 19th. But then you would effectively need to appoint someone that night, because you'd only have, a handful more days before that 60-day time frame ran out. But if you're comfortable saying, we're going to appoint someone that night, then I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think we do it if we had a separate interview day. That way we're not rushed up against the thing. It's already awkward interviewing candidates when they have to do it in public. It's really nerve-wracking, so it might be good to have a separate day to do that. And then at that official night, we appoint. Could that happen?
I think it needs to be public though.
It has to be public.
Okay.
I'm just saying
Okay.
separate it out to its own night.
Yeah.
Special
Sorry.
meeting, or,
A special meeting, yeah, thanks, Lisa.
well, you wouldn't be making a decision, so you could just do a work session.
Work session,
I still think if we're opening it to the full public, we go to election, because I think it's a different animal entirely, and the public should weigh in on that, that's just my.
Well, that's a good
They
point. I
wanted
didn't
all
think
of us.
of that. You're kind of essentially, yeah. So I would prefer, here, I'll just throw I would prefer the past candidates, and we'll see if there's any interest from current committee members. I could also go open, totally open application. I would prefer to kind of keep it closed. I think it would help out quicker, not only with the interviews for us, but we know we're gonna have informed people. And we're not all gonna find an ideal candidate, it just doesn't exist, so I think we just pick from what we have. But I'm not gonna throw a fit too for an open application, so I think, you know, you have a point too, that someone might come out of the blue that, I don't know.
And we can call it during the interview process.
Okay. You're not worried about like 15 candidates and how do we weed
That's why
that
I went on
down?
a separate night.
I think that could
Not
be
all
way
interviews
too
have to last 15
overwhelming.
minutes. How many times have you been to a job interview that lasts 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Trustee Ayers, do you have an opinion?
I don't know. I think if we're opening it up to the full public, I understand that yes, we may get newcomers or people who didn't realize that the process was going on one way or another. But I think that if we're going to make an appointment, if we are going to have to decide among a number of people who are going to take up a year-and-a-half term, I don't think that it's the worst thing to have a closed pool just to limit. And I think if we had a closed pool of just the past candidates and the committees, that we can also shorten the application time. It doesn't have to be a month, because we can all disseminate the fact that there is going to be an appointment amongst that closed pool. And so we could shorten it maybe to 2 to 3 weeks and just kind of move on with the process.
That's a thought I didn't think of. I like that too.
What else if we have like 15 people applying, how are we gonna have consensus as a board if we
Mhm.
all are
It'd have to be a
voting?
ranked choice.
Right,
Yeah,
like
it
that's
would
gonna
be
be,
ugly.
I think that process is gonna be a lot more difficult than if
Well,
it's multiple, if there's a large pool.
Yeah, if there's a large pool, we can go rounds, I guess, that's a way to go, when it's a permanent
Set up a
pool
ring?
where
Is that what you're talking
everybody
about?
gets like X many votes, and the winners of that get put into another pool, and then it's gone from there, so.
This is like the pie eating all over again.
We swarm over,
All
okay,
over.
finish every pie.
For what it's
We're
worth,
overcomplicating it.
for what it's worth, it will not be an easy decision. It never has been, at least in the couple of times it's been done since I've been here. And that's unfortunately the hard part of your job. But
And it's always been
if you
controversial.
have an open process that's transparent, that the public is allowed to see and participate in, you know, you're not going to, you're not gonna please everyone in town. It's just not gonna happen. There's not one candidate that every single person in town is gonna vote for. You've all been through elections, so you know that.
Yeah.
So.
So,
Just vote.
I'll just throw it out here, I don't know if we should vote, but, unless, okay, I guess we could poll. I guess we could vote too, but,
Just make a motion and see how it goes.
yeah, I guess it's the one way to poll, huh, just do it. So yeah.
Rip that Band-Aid off.
I think that so Carl, I like your thoughts too, and I don't know if I should be making a motion, but I think the other benefit of that is that we're kind of pre-qualifying things, so we know these candidates are informed, and if, you know, somehow we can get this information out quicker, so we can also shorten the time. And really, this has an effect on our retreat timing too, I just want to get going, so. I would prefer, but it's whoever makes the motion, just go for it.
I will move to have a closed candidate pool for the vacancy, including any current committee members and the 3 previous candidates who ran for the most recent election.
Second. All right, we have a motion from trustee Sorcelli, seconded by trustee Murphy. Do you have any discussion on that?
Just if I may ask, when would you like the
Oh,
period to end in which people could submit their interest?
do you have any recommendations for that?
Well, they're closed Fridays.
Or we could just split this, do you want to split this motion? No.
I'd just say that you do at least a couple weeks, if not a few.
3 weeks?
Yeah, 3 weeks. Does that work? Okay, throw that in, so amend for 3 weeks.
Yes, amend for 3 weeks.
All right.
I'll second the
Okay.
amendment.
All right, friendly agreement there.
The question I have is, do former trustees also fall into that as people who have been a part of the process? As a general question.
I think there's a point to that. My thoughts are that trustees left, and we have candidates that applied that have more current information from the public. And then we have committee members who are currently voting. I have nothing against any former trustees by any means. I think this is just another way to filter out and have a smaller candidate pool.
So former trustees, is that a yes or a no?
No.
Just, okay. Alright.
My thoughts, this is also not my motion, so.
No to former trustees to keep the candidate pool smaller.
Okay. Alright.
I'll second that.
Okay. Deputy Clerk, do a roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Graves,
Yes.
Trustee Hardy,
No.
Trustee Ayers,
Yes.
Trustee Murphy,
Yes.
Trustee Sarcelli,
Yes.
Mayor Kirsten.
Yes. All right. That's a great suggestion to just vote. Huh.
There we go.
Out of all the options, that
quick
kind
way to take a
of
vote.
eluded me.
Moves things along.
All right, well, that concludes our regular meeting. Thank you to the public for your attendance tonight. I know it went late. We're at 10 p.m. now. We'll just move on to reports, and we'll start out with Trustee Hardy.
I get to go first. Let's see here, what do we got? Since we just appointed 2 on the tree committee, I guess I'll punch out there that historical preservation group has a seat still available. So if there's any other people wanting to serve committees, they can check out the historical preservation committee. Birthday, thought went pretty well, although I couldn't stand waiting in the food line, so I hopped on the shuttle, went back downtown and got a beer and what did I get? A stick guy, skewers, in like about 20 minutes. So we did do the Bats Bus rounding about, and that was better than they expected. They didn't think they'd get as many riders as we did. We got about 100 riders in about a 4-hour period, so I think they weren't expecting that many at all. I did find out that some people were catching the raft cars into town as well, because they would see that shuttle stop and say, "Are you going into town?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure, we can take you." So between the bus and raft, I think people were getting good rides around town to deal with stuff. Let's see what else. Berthoud Main Street's gonna have a meeting coming up here at the end of the month. Discuss some of the future events that are gonna be happening the rest of the year. We are looking for board members as well there, so if you still wanna serve on a committee someplace in Pasadena town, definitely get in contact with me or Mighty Veldhuis, and we'll get you the information to attend a meeting and come check that out if you wanna look at that committee as well. And I think that is all.
All right. Yeah. Just some Snowfest stuff, but I guess that's Main Street related.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it affects us, right? It's good for the
I
restaurants.
kept it
but-
vague enough to
Yeah.
say upcoming events.
Yep. I just want to interrupt real quick. I totally spaced public comment on the last agenda item, and I promised the public comment on all items. Unfortunately, that is closed. That was not deliberate by any means, if anyone waited this long to speak to that agenda item. And yeah, take it all out on me. That was an accident, and if you have any strong points, please email me or give me a call, or any of us. So, thank you. Sorry about that. And Trustee Ayers?
So the port committee had a tour of the parks at the beginning of the month. We used a Bats Bus, which was really nice to ride around on. It had just rained, so we didn't get to go as far into some of the properties as we would have liked. There was a threat that we were gonna get stuck in the big bus, so we all kind of decided to stay closer towards the roads. It went really well. It was very useful to have an outlook all across town. We went all the way up to the Jaskowski property and then down by Turner. Some of the TPC connection gate was open when we drove by, which apparently is a big deal. That apparently that's being utilized, and the landowner is now allowing traffic to go back and forth. It's not the best trail, so it's not a viable connection unless you really have a dirt bike or unless you're
So what was
walking.
this? Because I drove by, and it was like, it looked like it was kind of vandalized, like halfway open, but they've actually opened the gate, so we can go back.
It was open.
Alright.
Not to the
Clubhouse.
Rookery, but to the clubhouse. So
Yeah.
coming off of 10, going north to the clubhouse, the gate was open and there were bike paths in the dirt. So it's not the best material for surface.
What I said.
But
It could be fun.
But it's, yeah, it could be, yeah. And then I have a couple other points, but in the interest of time, I will hold those to the next meeting. The one question I did have for staff, and I apologize, once again, I could have emailed you this question. But I've been riding my bike up to Bertha Reservoir a lot along 4th Street, and 4th Street is marked as a regional corridor route. Is there any reason that that wasn't a town route to create a more town loop, I guess, as opposed to a regional trail? Because we have those two, according to the master plan, we have those two connectors north to Loveland that are both regional. And it just, 4th Street, I think, is a really large north-south throughfare that goes all the way to 10. So I was wondering why the town hasn't.
Are you talking about for vehicles or for
For
bikes?
bicycles.
4th Street is intended in our bike master plan, I thought.
But it's distinguished as a,
As a bikeway.
but it's marked as a regional trail as what was the, I guess what was the idea behind it being a future, quote unquote, future regional connector as opposed to sort of a more focus on an in-town loop, because there's a lot of neighborhoods up there, the reservoirs up there.
I'll be honest, I'm not sure I know the answer to that question, so I'll have to get back to you.
Wasn't 4th going up and then we're gonna like look at
I read my
getting
one wheel
the
on
railroad
4th.
tracks and going underneath the 287 and wasn't there some thought of that?
Yeah, there's thought.
I'm not really sure, I don't think, no, I don't think so. So that
We
that
talked
may
about
be, that may
Yeah.
be a mistake. It may be you may be seeing the label for the railroad trail that would be, kind of adjacent to 4th Street.
Okay.
But I don't know, that's good, I'll have to look into it. I don't think we would have intentionally designated 4th Street as a regional connection because it terminates at 10E.
Right.
So it wouldn't make sense to make that a regional pathway, especially like you said, there's already the one along Bertha Parkway that'll go through Heron Lakes and up to Loveland through the Front Range Trail, and then the kind of the regional trail planned along the railroad tracks and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Worth getting history on. I think Tim's point may have been what it was, is that we were talking about informally going underneath the bridge, but maybe they're saying by the water treatment plant, then put it back on 4th, so people are riding on the street. I think it's a good point, we should look into it.
And on a just a related note, I've been, riding my bike around town, and I'd like to see more striping. Sharrows, bike lanes, doesn't have to be bollards, but just any kind of bike marking, I think helps with.
We have a several
safety.
$100,000 bike striping project for late this summer.
Okay, perfect.
You'll see a whole lot of striping go down around town.
Okay. And like I said, I have other stuff, but I'll wait till.
Sure, that's what it's for, go for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right.
He wants to share it, he
Trustee
wants to
Torricelli?
spread it out.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good stuff though. I don't have anything to report.
Really? Yeah, the biggest event of the year, you have
I
nothing.
try to take that hat off, but I will say that, in my opinion, long food lines meant we had a very successful Bertha Day, and
Absolutely.
we supported all the Bertha businesses that were involved, including all the sponsors, all the dance companies, everyone that was there. Long lines meant, and like the Mikosina food truck was a hit. So there was a lot of downtown businesses at Bertha Day that benefited. So to me, I saw success, and I have a lot of great things to say, but I'll try to take that hat off and come chat with me if you're mad or happy, and we'll work it all out at the Chamber.
Where no one can hear you scream.
I don't know, those
I
walls are
don't think
pretty
the
thin.
rooms- yeah, I was gonna say that the building's not
That
soundproof.
building's pretty old.
No insulation in it.
Yeah.
Trustee Murphy?
Yeah, just wanted to bring up, with the new tree committee members, we've had some discussions. And, they wanna present some of the communication ideas that they've got proposed, sometime in August, so if we could fit like just a small presentation sometime in that, that'd
We
be
can coordinate
appreciated.
that, for sure.
Yep. Other than that, I've got nothing else. Well done, Minnie, and the chamber as well, so.
Trustee Mayor Pro Tem Grace?
Again,
I'll be doing that till the very end.
It keeps going back and forth.
That's
It's honestly like.
Trustee Pro Tem.
Yeah, that guy.
It's quite a Jake.
Thanks. Nothing really to report. I just have I guess the rec center, their outdoor sports arena. If you wanna go play with battle ropes and
Oh,
push
yeah.
a sled, that's finally done. They took the writing on the walls that says, open the store and an emergency exit alarm's gonna go off. That's gone. You go out there and play in the 100-degree heat.
What are we talking about?
So the rec center, where there's a bunch of ellipticals, like the running area. Just north of that big open space that was just concrete patio, that patio space is now open for you to go out there and, do your Ninja Warrior stuff.
And there's
Order.
the T-Rex thing.
That's what I was
push
calling
across
an
the-
adult jungle gym, is
Yeah,
that?
it's pretty much that, yeah. Yeah,
That's what I call it. So
Okay.
it is.
It has artificial turf, you can push sleds, you can do battle ropes, you can do medicine balls and
Cool,
kettlebells. and
When are we having a
adult
retreat
jungle
there?
gym.
Well,
right.
funny you
Done.
ask, they're apparently gonna be offering classes out there, break of dawn for the super masochistic people who like waking up at 5:30, to go, sweat while the sun's rising and, really Sun Tzu the whole thing. What else? Question actually about the rec center. There are sprinklers that go off around it throughout the day, and I'm not sure, is that allowed or what's the deal with that? Because I see it essentially, it looks like just watering shrub and weed. I'm not sure what the rules are.
So, the ordinance that prohibits watering between the hours of 10 and 6, there's a specific provision in there that establishing new seed is not, you can water any time of the day in order to establish new seed or new sod. That's effectively what we're attempting to do. And that system is also non-pot. I actually don't know if it's running on non-pot right now because it's designed to be able to take non-pot or potable, so that we could water in the shoulder months to get those fields in suitable shape.
I don't think it's on non-potable, I think you're running potable right now.
I think that might be true, but I know that we were working on it because the ditch had just turned on recently.
Because, well, if this is potable, then we should be working with RTJ. We could save the taxpayers a bunch of money if we're partnering on that pump, right? Are you talking about the big pump? Hey, I'm hijacking
We
this.
did partner with R2J when we did all the irrigation improvements to deliver non-pot to their site also. We already did that as part of the project.
But they're on potable right now, so they're not using non-pot.
True, that's not because they can't.
Which is incredible. Okay. I'm in a different email I'll share with the board. They're saying, no, it's
I'd like to
costing
see
too
that
much.
also.
Okay, yeah.
Gotcha.
They actually just reached out to us to go potable at the high school.
She warned me of that, yeah.
Yeah, so just, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, that wasn't even the point. I just heard non-pot and my horns went on. Yeah.
If they are not able to use the non-pot system and the upgrades that we installed to Turner, that's news to me.
They said it'll cost $30,000, and unless there's $30,000 out there, they're not gonna do it.
To use
this year.
non-pot?
This year, to fix the pump, apparently the pump's broken. Anyway.
Well, there you go. That's one stupid question.
That's a good question, 'cause
I think those are different pumps too than our system.
Okay.
That
That
piece
might
is
be
at
it.
the terminus, I think those pumps are down there by the football field. They're not we have a totally separate system from them.
Okay. Birth and Youth Advisory, got a meeting coming up later this week, but Scorch Fest still going on. If anybody wants to volunteer to be supervisor, or at least be volunteer fodder to go take tickets and stand outside carnival rides, July 29th and 30th.
2 days, awesome.
Yep, 29th, 30th, 29th is a half day, 30th is pretty much afternoon until evening. If you want to be part of it, send me your email and I can get you included in the mailing list and we'll go from there.
Can other high school students volunteer and get their community service hours in through that?
I believe it would count as community service hours.
I think the answer to that is yes, at least they've talked about that, and I think that's how they promoted it to the rest of the high school that they've got.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So yeah,
That
if
might
you,
be an option. I know at
Get
least
your
one,
kids to work.
but
There you go.
we'll see how much she wants to stand.
yeah, just send me your email and we'll get them in contact and go from there and have the high school kids do the big kid work. So, yeah, that's it for me for reports.
I had some too, in interest of time. Doesn't really affect the town too much, just kind of our MPO and rail and stuff like that. But at the next meeting, I'll probably have more information, so. Who's going? Mike and I and Trustee Hardy going to CML? All right, I was gonna say that I thought there was something we needed to do by the end of June. But I guess, never mind, I'll just look forward to seeing you at CML and I have no report. Getting that tired. Turn over to staff.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I have nothing, Your Honor.
Okay.
Just in quick answer to your question, Carl, I pulled up trustee Ayers. I pulled up our trails master plan. We don't have a regional trail on 4th Street. There is a regional trail that runs along the railroad tracks.
Okay.
And that might be what you've seen.
Okay.
Our bike lane master plan, which is different, that's like on-road bike infrastructure, does show 4th Street as a primary bike corridor, but not as a regional one.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's it for me.
Mr. Markham.
Oh gosh, thank you. It's late, I almost forgot. We had a request from the gentleman that farms the Jaskowski property. We have an existing lease that specifies that's to be used for agricultural purposes. He reached out because he has a young man that works for him, or that does work for him. There's, I think, maybe a distinction there, but in any case, that's interested in leasing the townhouse that's attached to the barn. We allow Mr. Markham, the farmer, to use the barn to store hay. It's not included or excluded from the lease, but it's certainly within the context of agricultural purposes, so we allow him to do that. The townhouse is attached to that building, it's not the house itself. It is not in great shape. In fact, the last time I was in there, it was really gross. But the question that I have, generally speaking, and I'm not asking you to vote, but before I spend a lot of time working on it, is do we want to consider leasing a portion of that property for residential purposes? I don't think that Mr. Markham's lease would give him the ability to utilize those buildings for residential purposes. I don't think it gives him the ability currently to sublease his leased area, because I don't think he's leasing the buildings, he's leasing the ground for the agriculture. I am, as the town administrator, hesitant for us to utilize town property for private residences, even under a lease condition. But it's a request we haven't really had seriously until now, and because it's the farmer that's actively farming the site. There are a lot of challenges associated with that. What was that?
I'm just thinking, if things go south, we could do month by month and separate that. Could we separate the apartment from everything else?
I think, could we develop a lease agreement for the townhouse? Sure. I mean, there's lots of lease agreements out there. The question is, should we be in the residential leasing business?
Is he handy? Could he fix it up?
That's the,
So I mean, we have parks crews that do some work out there, but the buildings themselves are just sitting outside. We do use a couple of the buildings for storage for our forestry equipment and some other things. And that's been great. And it's good because then the guys have to go out there regularly, and it gives them reason to get out there and get eyes on the property. There are a lot of challenges with using that property for residential purposes, and I certainly don't want to get in this situation. I think one of my biggest concerns among many is I don't want the town board to have to evict someone in the future. And I just imagine, and I haven't even talked to Attorney Smith about it, but I just can only imagine the challenge that would be if that ever was necessary.
I think but we gotta ask for background here. This guy, what I thought when Bill contacted me was this guy's working at will be working on the irrigation at Jaskowski.
That may be true. I mean, I think because
that makes a big difference if it's just a general member of the public or a friend of his versus an actual guy working.
Rather than a caretaker of the property, perhaps. I don't know that we need a caretaker. He might need an employee to go out there and move water or cut hay. I don't know that the town needs a caretaker per se, and so.
Could he be a part-time town employee as a caretaker, and then that way when he would be evicting, he'd be fired.
Then we're evicting an employee.
No, he'd be fired, and then he loses his employee housing.
Would you say there's a life safety issue with the dwelling space?
I would say the last time I was in there, I would not live in it.
I wouldn't call it a life safety issue.
Yeah, I mean, could all the issues with it be corrected? Yes.
But we've all seen how landlords that don't fix up properties end up causing more trouble for themselves if they don't have a nice property to lease.
Well, and I think, you know,
I
the
hate
young
these
man,
things
the young
that
man
happen.
suggested that he'd be willing to clean it up and do all these other things. I just think this is a unique situation that like, this isn't my townhouse or your townhouse, it's the community's on a community property that has, you know,
Pretty strict and
conservation restrictions and all kinds of things, and I just.
I'm for it, but it doesn't sound like that may.
It doesn't sound
Carl?
livable.
I feel like it's a liability, and because it's a one-off, we don't have a standard or procedure, and even if we did, it may not flesh out. So I would hate to put that on staff
Yeah.
personally, because that's not in their wheelhouse. So I know that, I mean, I'd love to just, I would love for that to all work out nice and tidy, but it probably wouldn't. So I would say, let's not put that on staff, would be my opinion. What do you all think?
Yeah, I would agree with those comments as well. I think the only way that I would think about it is if whoever is living there is designated as some sort of pseudo caretaker for the property itself and less of an employee of the farmer. I guess with the understanding that whatever that property does become, it may be something to go ahead and think about because we don't need a caretaker now, but we don't know what that property is going to be, and it may be in the interest of the town and staff to go ahead and try to start figuring out any sort of policy that might be helpful if we do need a caretaker in the future to designate that as some sort of pseudo residential. I don't know what that would look like legally, but
It sounds like, no.
It's a bad precedent. It just kind of opens up more cans of worms than solves, in my opinion. Like, it's all well intended, and that's the crappy part about it.
I think the human side of me thinks it's perfectly fine.
And I get where you're
The
coming
town
at.
administrator side of me does
Yeah.
not. So,
My thing is, I wish, and Bill, I told him that Christie said bring it up. I don't know all the details, but it sounds like this guy's pretty crucial to the irrigation operation. That Bill might not be able to do it all. So, I don't think it's an ultimatum. I think they can still keep being farmed, but I don't see this as a general member of the public, just looking for a spot, so. But with that, I can see you guys' points.
you know, I think
Board is spoken.
I would feel a lot differently if it were like a, you know, hey, he's gonna be out here for, you know, a month and he's gonna park his travel trailer and he's just
Like a
gonna,
summer
and
camp or
he's gonna
something.
stay out on site.
Yeah.
That's different than someone living in the buildings and permanent.
Yeah, and there's a point there, like during the winter, you're not irrigating and you're not.
There's
doing
no
any
reason,
extra
there's no
work.
reason to have a caretaker dealing with irrigation in the wintertime, so, you know, this would be under a very temporary condition for a very specific purpose, that might be different.
So just out of curiosity, what are we doing for like maintenance out there to upkeep the buildings and stuff? Are they just all winterized and just kind of decaying,
The
or?
utilities are off and they're just there. You know, our crews go out there because they have to get equipment that we store out there on site in the buildings from time to time, and you know, we mow the grass periodically, but not like we would a park because it's not open to the public. And then Mr. Markham farms the remainder of the site for hay. It's a pretty straightforward operation. And I think, you know, Mr. Markham does a nice job. He'll mow around the ponds and things like that just to kind of keep it cleaned up, but it's just there.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
you know, I think we all have issues with that, but that's probably a topic for another night.
I did remember, my report that it was, how impressed other regional elected officials were with some of our environmental or conduit thing, which, our solar conduit, and garage EV charging conduits, which I think might be in part of a future requirement.
Yeah, no, I believe that's built in right now.
For us.
It
but
is in our code
I'm saying
today.
for the future electrical code.
No, yeah, that'll be standard,
They're really ahead of our time on that, and I think we have a parking maximum, right? If not, I totally lied to a bunch of people.
We do have a parking maximum.
Great. And there's a jaw, yeah, well, I thought we did, but there were like jaw drops that, we're able to do that because, trying to put that in apparently is absolutely, not happening in a lot of Denver areas, so, and Longmont's looking into it, getting a lot of pushback, so, when they heard we're doing it, I told them I'd send them over our code.
I hope I'm
glad
not.
we have
I
it.
hope I'm not lying to you either. Now,
No, I-
now I feel like I have to be declarative.
I remember Kurt said it, I
Yeah,
will hold it on you, I remember Kurt saying something like that.
I was blaming on Kurt, that's right.
Yep.
It got adopted while I was here, I should know, but I just, now that you're asking me to commit, I'm hesitant.
Yeah, no, so. It's people on
I'm
both sides of that.
99% sure we have a parking maximum.
It's good for walking.
To have that, so. I think we're ahead of our time in a lot of areas. Well, that is it. If anything else, does anyone have anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and adjourn. All right.